it's
So
nice
there's
and
really wooded property back there.
No,
It's
No?
all flat, just bare. We
I
don't
think
have
you're
any trees.
thinking of David Vicardi's area.
Well, so that's further up.
Yep.
You're coming from the highway.
Elaine, are you there?
Sunny Acres.
Wait.
As soon as you go,
across
it's the
creek.
first left is the
Wave
first
if
part
you
of
can hear
Luna,
me. Wave if you're
and then it'll
not
come
paying
back
attention.
out a little further down the road.
Yeah, it's right after the creek.
Okay. Yeah, never get on there. Must be
Elaine
nice.
is
It's-
not paying
Well,
attention.
a lot of people do, but
Accidentally?
not on Luna, but on Sunny Acres, and I'm pretty close to Sunny Acres. So it's
Pretty
just-
heavy highway now.
Yeah, it's how everybody gets to Mount Peel and
Yep.
all those neighborhoods. So,
Okay, on the Wi-Fi, tell me if you see San Juan County Radio
I didn't see that.
as an option for.
there's one that says
It's
radio.
this one here that says radio.
Yep.
Okay.
San Juan. I just see radio. Does it just say radio?
And what's the password there? Do we know?
Hold on. Stand by.
Okay.
I can tell he's typing.
Tech guys are kind of like lawyers, you know that?
So yeah. So San Juan County Radio, all one word.
You think you need them, but they kind of just make everything harder. Yeah.
How we doing?
Sheik's here. We can begin the meeting now.
Yeah, go ahead and start.
Here you go. I think somebody was hungry last time. We were here.
I was starving. Thank you. I don't know what you've got on the agenda, but it's rubber
Seriously,
stamp.
that was a long.
I'm in. May I come
Okay, you're in.
I'm in.
Okay, so San Juan County Radio is the
Yeah, so
password.
choose this one.
Oh.
And now don't unclick connect automatically.
The commissioners, they get theirs
It's gonna
catered, don't
ask
they,
you for the
Sylvia?
password. Type San Juan.
You get
County
catered
Radio.
meals for yours?
Sometime if we know that they're running late,
All right. I
we're
guess
gonna
I
have to do the
I
same
need to
thing.
win a bigger election, I guess, huh? And,
The problem is we know how much money is in the budget, so we don't complain about it.
well, that's all right. Nobody wants these. They just literally pointed at me and like, "Do you want to do that on a Thursday?" I'm like, "Sure."
It is a challenge, that's for sure. Okay, we're just waiting to confirm our audio.
Yours still won't come up. Trent?
Yeah.
Oh. You're in.
So this new computer is not a. So,
I'll reach over and do it for you though.
Sorry.
I don't know why we can't have touch screens.
Everything should be a touch screen. Use one. It's like
I do that. I'll go to scroll it.
There you go.
what's that?
Don't forget our pledge.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on here again.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
here, pass the donuts around. If you want a donut? I'll hog the whole thing.
No, thank you. You guys,
You want
Ann, you want donut?
I'm
good?
just saying, I'm good.
These will just
Much better.
Okay, Trent, we are all ready.
Okay.
Maybe. Let me get there.
Isn't that funny that we get a new interpretation of our land use and all of a sudden we're residential flex everywhere? Everything changes.
That's that $500 an hour.
That's what $500 an hour will do
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or not listening to the I should say not listening to the $500 an hour will get you there, right in a hurry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Different interpretation?
Yeah.
Oh no.
It is a challenge. We have Jen's here today, so you're in good hands.
Jens has kept his hair all these years.
It's supposed to be.
Okay. Audio on.
Audio's on.
Okay. Alrighty, let's call the San Juan County Planning Commission meeting of October the 26th, 2023 to order. Those in attendance are,
So you got Shay, our new planning commission member.
yep,
Welcome, Shay.
Shay Walker,
Yep.
Ann Austin, Lloyd Wilson, Cody Nielsen, Melissa Rigg, Trent Schaefer. Staff is Mac McDonald, County Attorney Jens Nielsen, and our impressive San Juan County Commissioner Sylvia Stubbs. Thank you. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes. It took me a few different tries.
Absolutely, but I think you kind of get this sense of you can tell on which items really had to have that record, and in there I captured the record. It's really hard to the conversations that you had were pretty much all valid. In an appeal or a lawsuit, it's good to have that information there and kind of the discussions that you all had with the developer and the answers that the developer had, because those are the hold you to it comments. And so,
And I did make a point before we get started that I want in the public comment, I allowed last meeting to go question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, and that's wrong. So just don't expect that again.
Yep. Public comments, time for public comment.
yeah, I agree. And I didn't capture those in the minutes either because they weren't relative to the overall discussion. Even though the questions were there, some of the answers from the developer I placed in there, but not the back and forth exchange.
Right.
That wasn't a part. That's not a part
Yeah.
of the record. And so,
Like I said, that's not what that discussion was. A little lengthy and I let it go too long. I apologize. Okay. Any questions or corrections to the minutes?
My name is misspelled.
is it really?
Yeah.
I just switched them around. Next time it'll be somebody else's name in there. Sorry, Melissa.
No
I
S.
will-
No S on rig.
I will fix it.
Thank you, Mac.
So that's a family name, and we have the S on the name. Why did you guys drop it?
I don't know.
I'll
I don't
tell
know.
ya.
It's the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Along with my first name being Mary.
Yeah. Yeah, I will make that correction.
Thank you.
Mary Melissa.
Mary Melissa.
I make a motion to approve the minutes with the change.
Okay.
I had another change potential that might be worth adding, but I remember there was a conversation trying to clarify whether or not the overnight accommodations overlay could be applied to residential. And
So that was kind of a broad discussion, and so I just kind of tried to summarize it because it really doesn't need to be a point of the record.
okay.
It was more of the
That was just my
commissioners.
question is if we need
Yeah,
to
it was
make
more
a
of the
record.
commissioners just having a broad discussion. There wasn't an action that was taken off of it. It was more trying to get everybody's heads on the same wavelength and what you're seeing different on there. And so I did summarize that piece instead of verbatim
Okay.
on there, if that makes sense. So the ones that are critical in court will be lengthy. Those that aren't, that are more discussions that you had just amongst yourselves, we just kind of summarize those.
Okay. It was more for the general public, just in case there was any confusion. Did we need to correct it? But if it's not necessary for
Yeah, no.
legal purposes, then I think that issue's going to come up again.
It will
it'll be
until
more
we fix the
official
ordinance. Yep.
on the record.
It will. Yep.
We've
So-
had the same problem since 19.
Yes. Similar discussions in
Yep.
similar meetings, and so it just kind of
It
carries
was in
forward.
November, wasn't it?
November 19th,
Yeah.
my birthday.
Yes.
I was here bantering with county
yeah.
commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't care about you either. I watched it.
That was a hard time. But yeah, so I summarized just kind of that general discussion and left it at that instead of hitting every valid point that each one of you made. If you want, I can change that. And so
Well, you
Has
know,
that been here for
if it's
10?
not a legal
requirement in
I mean,
there.
it was- for me, I was thinking, well, if the public didn't catch that, they might have wanted to catch that.
Yeah, and so it was kind of in this section here that I started, okay, let's
Right there.
generalize more of this.
Is that about the overnight accommodations in SVR?
That one,
Only because Mitch
it's
weighed in on it, and
Uh-huh.
that's kind of why I
He
thought
corrected me.
legally, maybe,
no.
since we had a legal, opinion.
So like the overlay process needs to be removed and kind of all of that. Because Sheik was in on it as well with that overall discussion about what we need to do and how to
That's what-
fix the future.
That's why it went so long.
Yeah, because Sheik,
Sorry. I apologize.
we didn't time him.
That's this time.
And so, yeah, I tried to just be more general in that section.
I thought it was when we were talking about Mount Peel,
On the what?
the Mount Peel properties. Because I think there was an assumption that they could build and apply for overnight accommodations in SVR.
Mm-mm.
That was the first interpretation that came from Mitch, and then it changed to the last one. So
Okay.
it's,
But
it's
then,
questionable for me.
but then Mitch said no,
Yep, at the last one he did.
he did it. He doesn't interpret it
Mhm.
that the OAO
Yeah.
can be applied to SVR. Anyway, I just thought it was worth mentioning that maybe. So I didn't see where that was in here. And
Okay.
if
I can put
for
it in
legal
there.
purposes, if it's not necessary, then I'm sure it'll get addressed in the future.
It will most certainly. I'm sure y'all will make sure that it's a little bit better.
So I'll second Lloyd's motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from September 28th, 2023.
And we haven't set the pledge.
Okay, we'll come back to that. It's not on my, and I forgot about it. I saw it somewhere. Anyway, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, who would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will do.
Oh, it's missing.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It was on the other one.
I know. I'll add that piece back on there. Sorry. It was a little late.
Okay,
All
we're
right.
getting so close. And we just talked about, it's been 4 years working on this new ordinance and the map. And prior to that, we were trying to work with Landmark, making changes to his presentation, but
And prior to that, we spent 2 years trying to create our own map and ordinance before Landmark was hired.
yeah, I blame that on Sitla.
No, they needed to be updated, and that's the problem. Even today, I've got a special meeting that's been called to order for new subdivision changes that's been put in Utah code that counties now have to adhere to. That so even in the draft form, we still have changes to that draft. And,
Because of lead mine.
yeah.
Okay.
And it should always be kind of a changing process, as your
Absolutely.
ordinances should never be so concrete that there's no movement on there, especially as you see, 5 years ago, overnight rentals, that's easy.
Yeah.
Today, overnight rentals, it's hard. And so things just have changed.
Yeah. Anyway, we're to a agenda item of how do we want to process the new ordinance and the map, make all these public hearings, get it to the public.
Yes. Yep.
What do you see with our map?
I was hoping you could tell me what you see. So.
I tried the link and it doesn't work anymore.
Oh, really?
If you go
Okay.
onto the county's website, you can find it there.
Oh,
It is on
that
the-
link works on the website.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is on there. If you look at the,
You're
So-
talking about the one that Scott sent you,
Yeah, the
Oh,
newer one, the newest interactive.
I don't know.
one.
It should have been right there.
and it's really hard to zoom in and actually see.
It's hard to
The
navigate.
ordinance, yep.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the map's anywhere close to ready for prime time, is it?
Not necessarily. And here's my thoughts with it is, typically there's a public engagement process, and we did that. Those of you that were here, I wasn't here, but I had seen kind of the footprint of a lot of public engagement, especially in Spanish Valley. They had, I don't know if you call them design charrettes or town hall meetings with anybody in the public that had questions. I remember when I first came, I attended a meeting at the Hideout where, I'm like,
That was your-
wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But you had those. And I think where this is a county-wide ordinance, I really think there should be some formal process where we're reaching out to Eastland and some of these other communities, Blanding, that are impacted with these full scale, and have more engagement, public engagement out there in those locations, so that it's just not done in a planning commission meeting behind. And it's not necessary. All of our meetings are public, but really there's not a lot of people that pay attention to it. I think if you had a town hall where you had several options of a map, doesn't have to be the final map, and nor does it have to be the final ordinance. But if you at least have that public engagement, and typically in a setting like that, you've hired somebody that, like Landmark, that took that initiative to set those up and go about that process. Well, here we've all done it in-house, and we don't have the hired firm that would do the public engagement as part of their contract. And so that's kind of where I was like thinking through, because I hear it from you. I hear it from attorneys as well. It's like, we really need to get those ordinances out there because it solves some of these issues that we're fronted with. And so, but yet you have to have a public engagement process with it. What does that look like? What does it look like for you as members of the Planning Commission? Are you willing to assist in that? Or is the anticipation that just staff does it on their own? Obviously staff is me. And so it's like, how do I get the time to do that as well? But I think it's super necessary to have that public engagement, because once you adopt, you can say, hey, we were here on this night. Why didn't you show up? Or maybe you showed up and we heard you, but yet chose to go a different direction instead. And so, but you've gone through this process that you can point to, and that's really, I think, where we're at in the ordinances and the mapping side of it. Let's push it out to the public and get their feedback on it. Predicated from this is you should have the general plan that all of this kind of stems into. Well, you look in our general plan, there's probably a couple sentences that really pay homage to affordable housing. Nowadays, affordable housing, you've got to describe it. You've got to detail, okay, what are we doing as a county to bring about affordable housing? And that all kind of trickles down through your zoning. But that's kind of how I seen it, as a little bit more public engagement. And what does that look like?
I think it needs like a facilitator of some sort. And when I say that, say we did it in Blanding.
Mhm.
So first of all, I think you would have to have some kind of advertisement. You know,
Yes.
even if it was like front
In the
page
paper.
newspaper,
Absolutely.
be like, hey, so San Juan County is going out and reaching out to, you know, to all the communities in the county because of the news, you know, and this is what we're planning, and
Yep.
the process is to clarify and clean up
Yeah.
and get rid of redundancy, you know, and then somebody might read it and be like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah.
But then on the same hand, so I mean, I'm from Blanding, so say we
I pictured
had
you
it,
there, facilitator,
you know, the city, but
Commissioner Nelson.
no, but we need a $500 an hour tech guy that can come and know, like, you know what I mean, put
Yeah.
it at, you know, the city office and be like, this is the map, and you can
Yep.
zoom in, because I can't even do that. I look
Yeah.
at it and I zoom in and I'm like, I don't know where my house is. Am I
Yeah.
in which one? And I sit on this board, so I'm just saying, I don't want to be in a meeting and be like, I don't know, I guess.
I don't know. Let's zoom into it. And
You know
you're
what I
like,
mean? Because somebody's gonna be like, "Where am I? What?
100%.
Which ones apply to me?"
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I'll be
100%.
like, "You're about right here." Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm more than willing to. I think we all are, but we just need that
So
technical
if we
assistance.
Well,
were-
and
if we
historical
were to say-
perspective too. Like,
Yeah.
why are you making these changes?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
It'll be
know.
lawsuit number 1, lawsuit number 2.
If you were to make it like a 3-night thing and base it off of your commissioner districts. Okay,
Okay.
so you.
The blending split up with 3. And
Yeah.
so,
But I look at it this way. Okay, this is the district that we're going over night 1,
mhm.
district night 2,
I like
district
that.
night 3. If you are interested, even if you live in Blanding and you want to go to the first district on the northern end,
Yeah.
you have every right to. You're a member of San Juan County.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
you're a resident. So, but it's going to help bring interest in and help bring ideas to just this district.
Okay.
And if we do it a 3-night thing, we do it right here at the county seat. This is the county seat.
This is the county seat.
Then
Yep.
I mean, and we all can drive
No
to the
getting
county
around
seat.
that.
And it's not a better place to do it. But that
So
way,
just-
that way you can involve people within that district. You know,
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter if people come from another district to give input because they are still part of the county.
Okay.
But that would help break it up into 3 different nights
Mhm.
to where we're actually getting public comment and public
Just-
views on
Yep.
their
Their
area.
feedback.
And do create a Zoom. for
Okay.
it. That way it's not so crowded in here.
Yeah.
I mean, the last one we had down at
The hideout was
Wissa?
crazy.
Oh, that one wasn't even bad.
Well, yeah. The one
Wissa
you,
was bad.
well, even the one that you had at your trailer. I
In
mean,
my
that
office,
was yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I actually got called in.
yeah.
Not wearing masks during COVID.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
think that would be a really good idea to help bring people in and help minimize the map. If you can break it into 3 nights of 3
Mhm.
different sections of the
Yeah.
map. I
So
think-
bring in like Eastland with Monticello,
Yeah.
and then do like your Flatiron Mesa, Spanish Valley, Wilson Arch, you know, those communities out
that.
there in one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll minimize the confusion. If
Okay.
you throw one big, because San Juan County's huge.
Yeah.
You throw it out there, and then it's just it's hard to pinpoint, like Cody was saying. But if you're breaking it up into at least 3,
Yeah,
if not more.
Yep.
In separate nights that you have time to discuss it.
I like the idea of the facilitator, just somebody there that kind of is the consistency through all three
Landing,
meetings.
you could own 3 lots and be in 3 different districts.
can,
I mean, it's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
And if we call it a workshop, it doesn't matter if we have a quorum.
yeah, true.
So we can make sure that we, I mean, as volunteers for this, I mean, there's no reason we can't be here present for it.
Yeah,
Because
I
that's
think
why
so.
we're here.
Especially on your night that you represent that area.
100%.
Yeah,
But you need to be here for the other 2 nights too, because you need to know all about that too.
yeah,
Is you-
so true.
I mean, you're here for the.
Yeah, blinding. I mean, yeah, you need that representation even down through Bluff.
Mhm.
I mean, you get Bluff and Blanding in the same night. Those are 2 different perspectives, you know,
Absolutely.
and so don't be so quick. Yeah.
Great.
So,
But are you talking about county commissioners?
no,
Us.
nope.
Will the county commissioners be involved?
So we have to have a public hearing with that. I mean, you see Sylvia here at every planning
Yep.
commission meeting, so I'm sure she will be. Probably not so much with Jamie or Commissioner Harvey, where he's more down south Montezuma Creek, but there still is private property lands down there that this zoning would apply to,
Yeah.
and they're trying to do
He
a lot of
still
economic
votes, you have to
development.
come.
Yeah,
I
yep.
mean, I'm sorry, but that's the problem.
Yeah, they typically I have never really seen a lot of, even when I was at Salt Lake City, a lot of the Salt Lake City council members wouldn't show up to these type of things. They just never really participated. They're more of where you're the recommending body. You've gone through the vetting,
Yep.
and it's unfortunate this last go around with Landmark. I mean, the planning commission was there the whole entire time, took public comments and feedback, and then when it goes to the commission, it goes all crazy. But
Well,
yeah,
how
we'll
many-
definitely invite them to it, but really it's the planning commission that's probably
Right.
more important that you understand that zoning.
How many of us are new since 2019? Just okay.
Three.
All of us.
All
Except for
so Dave was here,
2019.
Lloyd and
Well,
Trent.
since-
Oh,
so
since-
Dave, so 3 of you.
Since
You took
Yeah.
Steve's place, huh?
Yeah, Scoot
Yeah.
was here.
That's
Yeah,
what I wasn't.
Scoot was here through that
so
one,
you
and that's why he
resigned.
resigned. He's like, I'm done.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, he's like, I'm out. I cannot do this anymore.
Because we didn't know why there was a planning and zoning board at that point.
Yeah.
We were wasting our time coming here.
Yep. It was unfortunate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Trent.
Well, my only comment about it would be, could we have sort of like a prep session before we do any
Oh,
of these?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
no, we do it on the spur.
no,
Love
It
you
acts-
don't want a
we
prep.
act like it most of the time.
it. Yeah.
And the thing I like about a facilitator can also bring on the boards and kind of show you holistically, these are the changes that we're looking at. Here's the definitions for the zones. And so they bring in a little bit more of the professionalism. I don't have time to do that, but
Right.
they would. That's their bread and butter.
What about that kid from the AOG?
He could. He's also a part of another city on operation, so he's more part time. He was the one that did the map
Right.
for us, and
That's
so
why I was saying that.
I think for me, if you're wanting a facilitator, you're wanting a company that actually does this for a living.
Like, conservation district, a couple times a year, we hire a facilitator to,
Yep, come out
to
and
run our big meeting with
Yeah.
Grand County and the other districts.
Yeah.
And NRCS and those, so they come in, they gather all the information, they put all that in
put the
front of
boards
pub,
together and
yeah.
the slideshows and all of
And
the
I
things
have
for
no idea.
us. Yep.
Really what it costs, cause it gets split, but I know they,
So we have budgeted funds in our funds right now that can go towards this, and so we can definitely put it out just for a quick RFP to see who wants to help us, knowing that the ordinances are pretty close to being final.
They're like 99.9%.
Yes, yep. We just need that public engagement to get us over that. These facilitators like Jones and DeMille, they're an engineering firm that also does planning for it, and so it's somebody like that can step in and kind of be the the face, and then
I mean, I
we're there for the
been here
answers.
long enough. I know some, but like I feel really good about the ordinances.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
just matching that up with the map that I just
Yeah.
and in public comment. I think that's where you're going to get, because there's going to be that. I mean, I can tell you in Blanding, they're going to be like, "What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
how are why?" Whatever, and like, and where am I?
Where am I?
You
Is the
know,
biggest question.
right.
Is like, what are you doing to my property?
Mhm.
Are you devaluing, or
Right.
are you
So-
increasing the value? Are you making it hard for me, like you,
Mhm.
to add on to my house? I mean, yeah, they want to know exactly what the hurt me is,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's easy to go through, and as we look through the ordinances, it's easy to go through and define and try to fix the problems that we're faced with. But the true test is once you color that map to that property, and then all of a sudden they're no longer in a highway commercial zone and they're residential. You gotta go, wait, no,
Right. Yep.
and so that's really when the truth
Or
comes
even,
out.
if you go from, you've been in A1 to now you're in A5.
Or well, and we've tried to,
and they're
I
going to
think,
be
primarily get rid of the
like-
agriculture unless you have 5 acres, if I remember right. It's
Well,
been
yeah,
a minute.
but
I
that's
think
what
our
it's
new
been.
ordinance has that. Yep.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is. So,
And
it's
so now
5
you're in a
now.
residential and you're stuck. And but I've got a barn in the back and livestock that I run every year, and now you're telling me I can't have cows?
No, we just call you non-conforming. You just can't buy a new cow. Can't add 4 hooves to the ground.
Yeah. So it's things like that where the truth really hits
Yep.
the public, is once you color that map.
So there's already been some public engagement. For
We've
this
had public hearings, and we've solicited. You see on our website where we're taking comments, and
So
it's
that's-
still open.
Right. So
and-
I was gonna say, how do we get to see those comments?
I think Scott has given those to you in the past. We haven't received any lately.
Well,
It's been pretty
it was definitely
silent.
before some of us
Mhm.
were on the commission, so we've never seen any of
Okay,
those
true,
comments.
Melissa. Yeah,
Every
Shay.
comment before every meeting.
Yep.
No, I mean from the Ludmo, the ones
Oh.
that people submitted online,
We can get those to the.
because that would be very helpful to see what's already been commented.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's something that should or could be shared with the public. Maybe.
It was already part of the public record.
Well, how do you see? How does the public see what was commented online?
Oh, we hide it from them.
Or,
No. So there's no. I'll have to look in to see. So what you're saying is, typically, like, you'll have a news feed and you have everybody's comments on there. We could work with the facilitator to put all the comments on a page, so that people can see kind of
It might
that
help
string
people get
through
an
time.
Idea of what kinds of things they need to be thinking about.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we can work with them to have just that on our website, where all the comments that we received are this. But that would also, even in kind of these design meetings, we can have them pull that information as well and place it on the website. Landmark, I think if I remember right, Landmark did the same thing. Kind of had that list of comments that they've received in these design meetings and that.
Oh, right, right.
Select
Yeah.
few.
Was it? I don't know.
Very
And it was
select.
part of it is just making sure that it's updated and consistent. If we go that road, we're going to want to make sure they're all, other than if they're swearing or whatever,
Right.
that we kind of typically get in those. But good idea. I like that idea. Yeah. Anything else?
What kind of timeline are we talking
Oh,
about?
yesterday
Okay.
would have been super nice.
Well, if you think about winter's coming up,
Winter's coming up. Yep. No, we need to kick this out the door so that we can start having these meetings. And so
Mhm.
here in November,
okay.
And I'm thinking it's a 3 in a row thing.
Yeah.
I think that would work best for us.
okay.
So, like, whether it be a Tuesday, Wednesday, third, well, no, depends on fire. So,
Yeah. Yeah. But I think if you put it out there, I think we're to the point we've got to get this out to the public and get their feedback, have the meetings and adopt. And so I don't think December, if we can get it in November, Let me look at the calendaring and see.
Fourth week in November.
Seems rather miraculous to get
Well,
done.
and it seems
Because
pretty
you
quick,
got
but they're sitting.
Thanksgiving,
They've been
Christmas.
sitting on our
It's supposed to
website
work out.
for almost a year now, so it's not like it shouldn't be a new thing to.
Yeah, but nobody knows. Nobody. I mean, like we say that, it's like public notice. Nobody friggin' knows,
Yeah,
other than people that go to the meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
but if we put it in a newspaper, kind of
yeah, I just
advertise
think-
it a
Not in
little bit
public
broadly.
notice.
Not in a public note. Well,
Yeah, I just think
there's
you
two
need-
things I look at: obituaries and public notices.
do
I mean,
too.
see.
You need
So
you need
put
a
it in an
little-
obituary. Our old ordinances are dying.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
San Juan County Facebook,
Yeah.
a lot of people are looking at that now.
Yes.
I mean, that's where I watched the
Grand County will pick it up automatically because they like to help us,
Yeah,
and so
they do.
they do.
Oh no.
Yeah, public hearings. They tell us if it's wrong, or yeah. They're good
yeah,
about that.
And then a lot of us can share it too.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I will do that. So if we can try to get it in November, and a lot of it's going to depend on who we can get to do the facilitation. It's going to depend on that
Worst
because
case
they're going to be
scenario,
the
Cody or
arms. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And we'll,
I'm thinking we bring Scoot back for that.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure he would be tickled. It's like I told you, if you would have just gone with what we recommended, it would have been fine. And so I could already hear him. Yeah. But I mean, they're more than welcome. They do this. They do planning throughout counties, throughout the state. And so, yep, I can easily see them putting in a proposal to do it. Okay. Other than that, that's all I got.
Okay.
Spend some money, Mac. There you go.
I know. Seriously, just,
That easy.
it'll save us money on the other end.
Yeah.
On the lawsuit
Lawsuit.
side,
Yes.
where you have to start eating into that $8 million.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Yep, it'll help.
Okay, public comment. This is for anything that's not on the agenda. So we'll take in-house first and then online. Any public comment in person? Seeing none?
Maybe I'll make a comment.
Okay.
One of the things as we do planning and zoning and all this stuff, people may see this as regulation and people don't like regulation. But we have to sell that with the idea, take for instance, Spanish Valley, we have lots of growth. It's growing and growing and growing, but there's no street. Every time I go by, I like to go through Spanish Valley and get familiar with. I see those group places that people live in, and I think we have a fire or somebody needs an ambulance. It's getting harder as people are extending where it's now organized. And I know people don't like regulations sometimes. People resent regulation, but I think we got to tell them, because we had complaints from the people in the neighborhood. They complain about things are happening that should not be happening in the neighborhood, and they want us to police. As a county, we don't have the resources to send somebody every single time. But if we have regulations, and when people apply for property to build, and it's also, what they need to do is self-regulating themselves, because a letter can be sent to them according to your contract, this is what it said, and we don't have to send somebody to go enforce the rules. And I think it's not only, it's for their own protection. I see fires and how different kinds of things can happen if they're not regulated. One of the things, the cities that already incorporated, they have, they already have regulations, and so we don't worry about them as much as something new that's being added and it is not organized.
I agree.
In 2019, I'm going to lay the blame on the planning commission, me, for not selling that ordinance. I think we could have done better as far as public. I don't know if we could ever sold anything to.
Well, no, because we made our corrections the meeting before it went to the commissioners. We didn't have time to.
Yeah.
We made all our corrections. We took in a lot of stuff that came in. We had letters from Holly and Colby, and we tried to help incorporate those into what was there and take some stuff out, and tried to work with the community within Spanish Valley,
Mhm.
even the ones were on the outskirts.
Had
of Spanish
meetings
Valley.
there.
We were working
Yeah.
with everybody, trying to, and then the next week, it's at the commissioners. Trent and Scoot showed up to say, this is why we're looking at it this way, and it just got. So I can't throw the blame on us at all. I really can't.
I see your process that you've gone through there. You had a very open process with Spanish Valley in total. You had the hideout meeting.
Yeah.
That was literally strictly just to listen to community members. And at the time, all we were adjusting is the Spanish Valley ordinances. And so there was, people went door to door in the community. So there was a lot of community involvement, but when it came time for adoption, and probably part of it would have to be on staff as well, as in that approval process, there were different versions of the ordinance that was presented. With obviously that one with the final changes as final, but instead, they adopted the draft version, which is in my head, and it should have been explained a little bit further. And we tried to explain it to them as this draft version is just the bare bones. Here's to give you the idea of the thoughts, and you're supposed to carry it forward and further develop it. That's typically what you see in a draft. So it's copy and paste from other areas, different regions that may not apply here, but here's a thought of kind of what we're looking at. And then you go through that process to final it. We went through the process. The Planning Commission, myriad of meetings, went through that whole entire process, but instead of adopting a final version, it was like, well, let's adopt the draft. And so that's where you see today.
That map. Nope.
Yes. You see the incompleteness as you look at it, as you look at the zones, what they're titled, you look at sections that are missing. Well, all of this was just supposed to spur the thoughts. It wasn't supposed to be adopted as your go-to.
It was very corrupt at the time. 100%.
It was something.
As a resident, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
It was a very corrupt situation.
Yeah,
And
it was
pushed through on an agenda.
It was unfortunate how it all would final, but yet that's what we've had to work with.
Yep.
It's what they adopted.
Where we are now.
So therefore we do, and we try to muddle through it and try to interpret, and
$500 an hour.
yes, $500 an hour. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to do better
Okay.
personally trying to push this through.
We were all kind of hoping.
I'll start setting things up and I'll let you know further.
Okay. Any other in-house public comment?
We do have people online as well. I don't know if there's
Okay.
public comments that they would want to have.
Any online public comment? Raise your hand.
Not seeing anybody unmute themselves or raising their hands.
Moving on.
Okay.
Okay.
Next one on here, you've got the public hearing for the consideration and recommendation of 2.5 acres of the El Rancho subdivision. Properties rezone application to residential flex.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
So be it. Move into a public
Okay.
hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to go into a public hearing for 2.5 acres of El Rancho subdivision rezone from residential flex. No, to residential flex, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We are in a public hearing.
Okay. in the staff report, you have which parcels that are included in here. I've also provided kind of that site plan of the properties themselves as well. Currently, that 2.5 acres is a Spanish Valley Residential District. The request from the applicant was to move this to a Spanish Valley Residential Flex. Just as a reminder, Spanish Valley Residential District doesn't allow for the overnight rentals. Therefore, if you want that as your operating business, you've got to move it to a different zone that allows for overnight rentals. In the residential flex, it does allow you to then come back, apply for the overlay district, for the overnight overlay district, and then have the overnight rentals as part of that. So whether you're developing condominiums for that short-term rental or your single-family homes, townhomes, as overnight rentals, you have to go through either changing the zone to one that's appropriate for that or changing the zone that allows a PC process or the overnight rental or the overnight overlay district. So that's what the applicant sheet is here. Tonight, just as kind of a reminder, these are the properties that belong to the El Rancho Estates subdivision.
You do know that El Rancho is a Ford. If you called it El Camino, that would be a Chevy.
I do. My dad was a Ford mechanic for over 40 years.
Right.
Oh,
and
really?
retired with one of the larger Ford dealerships out in Colorado. So he had a Chevron station, loved his T-Birds. Anyway, but yes. I blame Lloyd for naming it El Rancho. No,
I wasn't around then.
I know. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, I think I hit on this a little bit as far as why the zoning request. It was part of that reviewing the potential new zoning map that was out. Again, this also goes back to as a citizen and as a resident since for many years and going through the whole landmark and the 2019 zoning changes and ordinance changes. We were on a highway commercial zone and it kind of flipped around. So it was super confusing as a resident on if our properties were gonna kind of have this zoning. I don't think anybody really minds about the residential side. I think it's now we are an island in the middle of multiple commercial, multiple nightly rental, multiple business characters, right, and zoning characters. So it's a little bit of a different personality there. So
I think he's pointing a finger at me.
when you got Lloyd, and then you got Lloyd, and then you got Lloyd. No, mess.
So there's, can we identify the parcels a little better?
Yeah.
That's what I was just trying to look
It's-
for on here.
it's
Just to try to
right.
figure out how do I get you.
Close
There.
to Tangren.
Right at Tangren.
Are those 7?
Yeah, it's
Right.
Which
There.
7? Which 7?
It's right.
When
There.
did we work?
south where it
65?
says Ranch Trail.
It's right here.
So show me, Lloyd, where are you at?
So-
Who's got the mouse?
I got a mouse. Why can't I find the pointer?
So here's Tangren Lane. You got Tangren Circle.
Okay.
We don't see your pointer.
Yeah. Where's the pointer? Did you turn my mouse off, Max?
Which one is
No?
this one?
So
Oh, there it is.
you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
you got it.
Just this
Here.
Just the middle
2.5.
That's where that parcel is.
It's the one that has the cursor in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Entire subdivision.
Let's see if I
Are
can.
again like we're such an
So
island
just
right
real
there.
quick, I'll show you. So this is outward bound. This is the Colorado outward bound
Commercial.
commercial piece. And then everything from here all the way to here out to the highway, this is all commercial. This piece right here is LeGrand Johnson. This is Grand County's the track. So this is, like she says, it is kind of surrounded by industrial and all commercial. So
And originally, I think one of the proposed maps that Landmark had was providing that whole area a little bit more flexibility because of the contiguous usage that was surrounding the entire subdivision. And but I think it was that again, the confusion of the map in 2019, right at the last minute, going to a whole different map and adopting that draft was what I think really kind of put these properties in that entire subdivision just kind of as a redheaded stepchild of zoning, anyway.
Okay.
I have a question for someone. So residential flex, does it allow more density than regular residential?
No.
So
No.
the density would be about the same.
Same quarters. We don't go any smaller than quarters.
So there's not, it wouldn't be a density. If you look at his subdivision, the subdivision is already that. And
Yeah.
so he's not asking to increase the density. It's just changing the availability to have the use that he needs to
At some point.
make it happen.
It's the flexibility.
He'd have to come back.
and
So
apply for the overlay.
yes,
That's what it allows.
in the residential flex area, it doesn't have it listed as a permitted use, overnight rentals, condo overnight rentals, but it allows it under the overlay district, and it specifically states it. So as long as you come back for the overlay and get that applied to it, then he can carry on with the overnight rentals.
Okay, well, I was asking the question not only for this one, but for his next one with the
Yes.
40 acres.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so really, so there's no density difference.
No,
No.
it's what you're able to subdivide to.
Thank you.
Yeah, no density request changes there. It's really, again, trying to preserve the future value for the landowners. I mean, yes, I have a self-interest. This is my property on the 2.5 acres, but it's really that entire neighborhood. I think every single property owner will be left behind once the Sitla development happens. Again, they're going to be looking for highest and best use. So you're, again, creating this island of just residential units versus providing that flexibility for future value.
I got a flaw for you.
Yeah, what's that?
In the development standards,
Uh-huh.
no non-residential uses within the RF zone shall be permitted within 100 feet of an adjacent residential district boundary, excuse me, or an existing residential use. So is that going to affect you? That's within the ordinance.
Yeah.
Within 100 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cost him $500 to find out.
I'll sign
No,
up for that
that's-
consultancy
So-
gig, by the way.
Yeah, but-
$500 an hour.
I agree that residential is not ideal there.
Oh, you know what? We're actually beyond. I don't think that's. I think all the houses are set back pretty far.
Well, it's adjacent residential district boundaries. It's not the houses. So like Dewey's, he'll still be in there. Greg and Greg, they'll both still be in there. Ed will be in there. So that's what's going to affect you the worst. And I'm not saying this to kick you. I'm saying this because if we approve this, and then all of a sudden you come back and you can't do nothing because of the wording in that.
Sure. Well, and I think that's why I think it's a broader discussion. You know, as you guys are looking at the map, having this conversation, right? I think I pay attention to the meetings and trying to kind of participate with my own properties, but yeah.
And business flex is 500 feet.
So I'm
So that's
questioning
what's confusing too. Is we have these all of this commercial 500 within less than 500 feet from my
because if
residence.
you go to the highway
Right.
commercial,
So it would also create a buffer zone for potential future development around all of the industrial stuff that's there.
There's no
Your
buffer
one
in
parcel
commercial.
though, because
Well, no,
everything else,
I think it's
assuming will
that-
stay SVR unless they came and tried to change it.
Yeah, I think that's why think it needs to be an overall broad stroke of that entire subdivision.
You mean
being,
where everywhere that it's
Yes.
SVR should be changed?
Yeah,
you know,
in
and I
that
tend to
area.
agree with you on
And
that.
this
but
whole section, yep, 100%.
Right here, yeah, this
The
piece,
problem-
state of Utah piece.
the question I have is in interpreting the ordinance of residential flex plan community. Within a planned community, it can be either a large planned community or a small one. You know, so the minimum for small is 20 acres, max is minimum for the large is 200. I feel my read of this ordinance is that it was intended for undeveloped land out there, like, you know, all that sitlo land, not necessarily for existing, unless you were gonna scrape it.
Well,
But
it's, yeah,
I don't. I mean, trying to apply
it's empty except for a couple of houses.
Really?
Yeah.
But trying to apply it to 2.5 acres is my question in reading the ordinance. If the intention is not for these small little parcels, I think it's for the bigger ones.
Well, and it depends on how you interpret that first paragraph. An
Of
ordinance
the-
clarifying the specific uses and relationships between uses within the residential flex plan. Between uses. So that, I mean, and then you go on to the next sentence, the requirements for a large planned community development. It's almost like it's leaving air between a small and a large.
Where's this? See, I think large is an error. I don't think they meant to put large there. I think they just meant planned
Can we get
community.
an
But
attorney's interpretation of that?
I mean, but either way, how I'm
Was
trying to
this a
understand what
living
you're saying.
document or?
Leaving some air between large and small, because we're the small. Because then everybody who owns an acre or 2 or 3, anywhere in the valley, would be encouraged to, you know, or it'd be enticing to change to residential flex.
Yeah, I don't.
Spot, you know, I think we're looking at. I don't think that's the intention of that.
Well, his is perfect because permitted uses says it has to be next to the gravel pits. I mean,
I think-
which paragraph do you want to correct? I mean,
Well,
you
we've
know-
already established, based on the rezone of Balanced
Balanced
Rock,
Rock,
that
yeah.
it doesn't
Mhm.
matter where in the valley residential flex can occur anywhere. We've established that. But is it to be applied to small parcels? Like your other one, it's 45 and a half
Right,
or 44 and a half. That meets the planned community, and there's nothing there, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
already being used for anything, so it fits the rezone qualifications as I'm reading it. But that's why I'm throwing it out there to other
Right.
people's interpretation. But I do think that zone needs to change from SVR to something more beneficial.
I'll take commercial if you guys are handing those out.
Actually, I think business flex would do you better.
But
Yeah, business
business
flex.
flex is the same problem. It's planned
Mhm.
community. It's still under the planned community.
Premise.
Premise.
Yeah. And it still
Of-
has that language in the planned community, but it does have an overlay option in there as well.
Well, they all have. You can apply overlay to any of them, right? Except for
Except for
SVR. But highway commercial, you could apply for overnight accommodations.
Absolutely.
But in the future, if we have a LEDMO, a new map and ordinance,
Mhm.
you may not have to deal with an overlay. It's possible
Exactly.
you would be already assigned
Assigned.
a more appropriate zone.
Yeah,
So
more
I don't know how
appropriate zone.
urgent your
So,
ask
so
is. But
the way you read this ordinance is, if you're not in SVR and you're not in highway commercial, you have to own big pieces of parcels for this.
yeah,
Everything in here
20 minimum of 20 or minimum of 200.
on chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5.
Right.
If you don't own 20 acres, you cannot be anything other than Spanish Valley residential or highway commercial. That's more or less what it comes down to.
That's what I'm reading. But tell me if I'm,
I think it's
because I think it was
just
intended
by
for
the
all of that
interpretation.
undeveloped.
But where do you
Sit
get
in
that
land.
from? Like, I don't understand how. Like,
Because-
where you stick the 20 on?
Well, so chapter
Because-
2 is Spanish Valley Plan Community, okay? And then you go to chapter 3, which is your residential flex, which is Spanish Valley Residential Flex Planned Community. And
So,
so if you go to
Does it
chapter
give- does it
2,
give an acre size?
I think chapter 2 does.
Yeah,
It does.
it does.
Three
On
does
page
not.
It's
16.
20.
Are we
it
talking
gave
about
the
page
20.
16?
yeah,
Yeah, it does.
Holler out a page and I'll bring it up online so everybody can
Page
see.
So, yeah, it's page 16.
So 19.
Does
and
it-
I thought I saw Lisa on there. Maybe
This
she
type
would
shall
speak
contain
So right
to
here.
it.
Does it have draft on there?
Single ownership. of this area.
The small planned community is a minimum of 20 acres. Large planned is minimum of 200.
Highway commercial.
I would love to
There's
amend
no
it as
buffer
highway
zones.
commercial.
There's no requirements.
So maybe that's a better way to go. Although those other neighbors that are SVR right now might.
There's no residential and highway commercial. So there you go again.
You
Right,
get the overnight
it's-
accommodations.
So
You
it'd be
still
all-
can't
it'd be
I would be
all
not.
overnight.
Permanent
Yeah, I would be
residence.
non-conforming at that point.
That was
Oh,
our
that would be
argument
right.
with Merriam Court.
Yeah, and so I think again it really shows how disconnected that ordinance is, right?
100%.
And so
It's like a
I'm
lot.
happy to amend my application to highway commercial if that gets a recommendation. But I think this is a great conversation, right? Because I think it affects a lot of neighbors.
When you get down to so I'm in highway commercials in the highway commercial district now.
Page.
Under uses subject to the Spanish Valley overnight accommodation overlay, you can have the all other variations of overnight accommodation intended for nightly rentals. And so you can go that route.
Yeah.
Either a highway commercial or residential flex, you're in an overlay process.
Yeah, I mean, I would love residential flex as a kind of as our first priority. I think it's
Okay.
just the term in itself gives you a little bit more buffer within your zoning outlays. But since the ordinance is what it is, I'm happy to take I'm happy to amend and restate that I request highway commercial.
But Mac, we still run into the same problem with the highway commercial as we dealt with this Marion Court. The lady that came in wanting
She
to
just wanted to rent her basement.
rent it
That was
out
it.
long
Just let me
term.
rent my
You
basement.
can't.
You have to do an overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And she didn't want to do short term. She wanted to add another house to
She's
rent. Well,
single
you
family.
can't.
I want to do single family,
Yeah.
but it doesn't allow you
Yeah.
single family
So
homes. in
every
highway
ordinance
commercial.
is against you, no matter what you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think the residential flex really gives the opportunity for individual landowners to, is it a home-based business? It gives a broader base. It doesn't necessarily need to be nightly rental or being qualified for overlay, right? It just provides that piece of land with some additional rights.
But then what would we? So if we approved a 2.5 acre currently with residences on it, we rezone that to residential flex. Would we not see a line out the door for everybody in the valley to want to switch?
Oh, that's what you're going to
I
see no
don't
matter
know.
what after Balancing Rock and the interpretation by Mitch.
But that was a huge acreage. So
It don't
they
matter.
could do it.
I mean, because the second he said that any zone other than SVR, well, that's not what he said the first time, but any zone you can do the overlay on, all of a sudden it was just, now we're starting to see it.
Well, and also,
And my thing is, back to your
So that was your
back
understanding?
back to your 20 acres thing.
Mhm.
That is not my chapter 3.
it's
that
it's
is in
so
chapter
disconnected and confusing.
I understand that you're calling this planned community. Well, this planned community here has its definitions for itself. This one does not have the definitions for that.
But it refers. Okay, so on page 26,
It's highlighted on here.
On-
So
Yeah, the requirements for a large planned community development detailed for the PC zone shall otherwise apply. That second sentence at the top. I mean, it's all about trying to decode
Oh,
this. But, I mean, I want to understand it for the sake of the, making good land use decisions.
Mhm.
You know. At
You could
least-
argue that it's not
Saw her
a
on there.
large planned community. This is the 2.5, and to be a large planned community, you've got to be the 200 plus
Right.
acres.
So it does say large for flex, but it doesn't say it for business flex. It doesn't use the word large. It just says
Mm,
planned community. And then if you skip over to highway flex, large is back in.
yes. Welcome to Planning Commission.
101.
Yeah.
Have you talked to
Oh
any of your
no, this is a
neighbors?
101. This is
No,
you gotta
that's
be
why
at
you do public
501
hearings.
to get this one.
It's
Yeah.
either one or the other.
And I think it's I think there's a strong wanting to preserve residential, and I think that's why I'm really looking at the residential flex, because you want to give everybody that right, and so but at the end of the day that island will get left behind.
Until the new Ludmo comes out.
Potentially. But that's also, I've been waiting 2 years, so
Yep. I think we need a $500 an hour interpretation on this for me to make an opinion.
So you're wondering if it has to be that large of a development before it qualifies? Well, I have to admit, I'm not so familiar with this ordinance that I can tell. I'm just looking at this now. Generally, ordinances aren't quite that restrictive. You have your permitted uses, and then you have language that says if you want a large such and such development, you can do that within this zone, but you have to have certain things will go in there, and it might be
criteria.
more options. Usually it's things like more density, regular housing, commercial, So it surprised me a little bit if something this size couldn't fit. But that doesn't mean it's not the case. I'm just looking here. We're talking about the residential flex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah.
Chapter 3 there. Let's see what page is it?
26.
It says all development should be planned as part of large-scale coordinated design.
If you look at just the heading, an ordinance clarifying the specific uses and relationships between uses within the residential flex planned community. And then it says the requirements for a large planned community development detailed for PC zone shall otherwise apply.
Right. And I read that as two different things.
Yeah.
Me too.
So your first sentence is okay. It's just basic. Here's your small blah blah blah. But if you go large, then you have to follow
all of the
The PC zone.
exactly.
I mean, you could probably have 20 acres worth of property to develop and decide, look, I could take the large 20 acre option, or I can just stick with default, the normal,
Mhm.
and have smaller. Let's just look through here a little farther.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the fact that large shows up on this one, it doesn't show up on the other one.
Well, that's just a mark error.
But so what was
He-
intended? Is it
he
supposed to?
gave
So
the final
read it without the
citation.
large. Read it without the large. In business flex, it says the requirements for planned community development.
So, if you look at the permitted uses, you see where it says all development should be planned as part of large scale.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, I read that to mean any smaller development like what we're talking about here should be consistent with the larger picture.
Hmm.
Not that it has to be a 20 acre development. to
Okay.
fit.
Scale, not
Right.
development
But-
size.
Just
Scale.
keep going, the $500 gets you a full review.
And if you get another $500, you'll get a different opinion.
So as you go toward the bottom of page 26 there,
to me, again, you get language that talks about keeping in mind the larger picture as you do this. The 100 foot tells me that if you're going to go with a large development, let's say you have a 20 acre development, it's got some residential and some commercial, you're not to have your residential within 100 feet of the commercial. I don't think this means that if your property abuts a commercial zone and you're within 100 feet, I don't know if that's what was discussed earlier, but you see what I'm saying? If your property is within 100 feet of the next zone and it's commercial, I don't think this applies to that. This applies to development that has all of these, and you don't want your commercial so close to your residential. That's the way I look at that. All right, let's see here. And then you go to the business part. So, typically a zone like this just wouldn't be so restrictive, I would think. Language can be interpreted multiple ways, as you know, as we're finding out. But it just seems like, you look at the Spanish Valley zone and you've got your different areas, but you have an overall plan. And to me, the 20 acre and the larger acreage is just allowing you more options within this zone. How many acres is this zone? I don't remember.
This, as in,
So he's just he's right here. So he's in that Utah sheep.
I mean the residential flex, the district there, the RF district. How big is that?
we don't really have
You have one, right? Right now?
That's the one.
We've just created one.
maybe
You
a better
just
way to ask
80
that is
acres.
how much of the overall ordinance could this district apply to?
Any.
more or
The
less
whole yellow
Thing, if you rezone,
anything
if
in
the
yellow.
commissioners approve it.
Gotcha. So, you made reference to all the open land earlier, and it just seems to me like this is intended to give options for someone that wants to come in and say, hey, I don't want a 20 home subdivision here. What I want to have is this large thing here. It's going to have some commercial, some residential, maybe some mixed use or something, some high density or something, some recreational stuff, and you can have one big development. It gives the developer an option to come in and be able to do one big thing, but it doesn't prevent the smaller.
So then so if that's the case, and small lots, it doesn't matter what size, can request residential.
So you would follow your,
Quarter acre.
there you go.
Mhm.
You have some defaults with some of those, I think. Let's see.
So, just summing this up. So, if you were to go, and the way you interpret this, the first chapter is if you're small, you're basic, you default, these are your permitted uses within that, blah, blah, blah. If you were to go large scale, which is 20 acres or more, as it specifies within the previous chapter, which is chapter 2, then you have to follow within, as it says on the development standards, the following development standards shall apply in addition to and or in conjunction with the standards established for the planned community development. So more or less, if you are anything under 20 acres, you are just following the permitted uses within. Anything over, you are over the 20 acres and over, you are going to follow chapter 2 to a T.
Yeah.
More or less. Okay.
It's gonna be interesting when Mitch comes back next month.
No.
What time?
It's the same. It's doing the same.
But especially these ordinances, the intent is you read them so that they all work together.
Right.
You would never have an overall large ordinance like this with all the different districts and have a situation where they just didn't somehow kind of
Nothing worked together. Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, my opinion is you can do the smaller and you have your default rules for that, and you can do the larger as well. It's just that it gives you that option. The reason you have this is because you do have such a large area there that's still under consideration, and there's, you know, speculation and ideas about what to do. And the good thing is you have enough area there that you could get a real phenomenal large scale thing that would be just fabulous, you know. But yeah, I don't think I'm do what this gentleman wants to do. That's my
Do we run the risk then of opening up the entire Spanish Valley residential to becoming residential flex? Meaning people will be applying to turn their 1 acre lot into SVR. I mean, not SVR, residential flex. And we're going to have commercial, and then we're going to have open up to overnight accommodations overlays for every little parcel.
You have, you know, once you create the ordinance, of course, you're always stuck with what it says, what it requires you to do. But you're not totally prevented from applying your, what's the right word? This overall ordinance is intended to create a certain character, a certain personality to that land out there. And it's this group and the county commissioners that decide what that is, within reason. I mean, you know, you have to follow the black letter of the law, but you do have some interpretation. You can, you know, you can always talk about how, you know, it's clear that it was never intended that you have, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, but it was clear that you never intended to have certain commercial development so close to another type of development, or residential so close, or so much residential. I think there's always some room for interpretation there. That's not a very good answer for you, but.
Well, I think people will come and apply,
Yeah.
but I also think
100%.
if it's not consistent, we can deny those or not recommend that the commission approve that rezone. I mean, I think you make a good point that for it to be consistent in the new ordinance or now, what you're asking for is valid. I mean, you are what I worry about with the new ordinance. That somebody, I mean, you were involved and you were aware, but there's that person that's not aware.
Right.
And they have one thing and then it's lost. And they come in here and be like, hey, my neighbor is this, I got left behind. And then we give them hell to try to move to be consistent. And I think that's what planning and zoning is for, is to help those people and those landowners' rights and be consistent through the county. You know, like you could find another piece, I don't know, a 2 acre piece somewhere. You're familiar with Spanish Valley more than me. And just be like, absolutely not. That's all residential. There's not overnight accommodations there. They could come and apply, and I'd fully support. No, we'll just not recommend that rezone. But I feel like here it's absolutely warranted.
Well, and so would highway commercial be a better choice? Only because then we don't open up or set the precedent so that everybody comes and tries to become residential flex, and you have to deny after deny after deny, or
I say no on the highway commercial. If you look at the permitted uses there,
It doesn't permit just residential, does it? It does
no.
not.
So
Yeah,
So
it
that,
would just
then
overnight
then he
rentals.
loses
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah,
the
so-
only reason.
but I
Well-
thought you wanted to do overnight accommodation.
Well, it's giving the option.
He just wants, yeah.
It's
Oh.
it's preserving the
It could just
option,
be residential.
right?
I see.
But then you look at this list, Dan. He's right in the middle of all that over there, and now all of a sudden we have all of this, because highway commercial, that's permitted uses,
Right here.
and yeah, and it's just not a good fit in
It
my
isn't.
opinion.
Yeah.
Highway commercial is not a good fit for where his piece is located. Residential flex is a good fit to where he's located. Because it does allow the overnight accommodations overlay to be applied to it, but it also doesn't give it all these other options because none of these within the highway commercial are a good fit to that piece of land.
Well, not right now with it surrounded by SVR. But
Right, and that's what I'm saying is
That's-
as it stands right now, it's not a good fit to be highway commercial at all.
Okay.
And that would open a whole nother can of worms.
Gosh, this makes me want that lead mow faster than ever now.
I mean, the next thing you know, we're going to have a bar there. I say highway commercial.
Oh, you want a bar?
Jens, you had a comment.
So this is just a continuation of what I was trying to say earlier. So in the permitted uses, it says the range of residential and housing are the primary uses permitted in this district. Other uses including parks, open space, commercial business, and similar uses shall be permitted within and in proximity to the large gravel pits located in this area. It would be perfectly fine to say in this ordinance, it's primarily intended for housing, residential and housing. So if you had a flurry of people coming in with mostly commercial type things, it would be fine for this group to say, hey, we're recommending to the commission that we've got enough commercial already in the pipeline here. So to everybody that's thinking commercial, this is our view of the ordinance, and that's what we're recommending to the county commission. So if you're thinking of coming with more commercial, we recommend you don't, unless the county commission says, no, we think it's okay. You know what I mean? So you have some leeway in there to approve or not approve those types of questions, those types of submissions, applications.
That would be setting a new standard for the county.
Yeah. So you all, of course, are you weed out and recommend to the county commission make their job easy.
Right. Because if we don't recommend them, it doesn't go to the agenda. It has to be appealed to the commission. So it's not like if we turn you down right now, as we won't recommend you, you don't get set up unless you go to MAC and say, hey, I want to appeal this, and that's the appeals board to our recommendation. So it's a little process after this too.
Great. All in favor? All right. That's fantastic. That's
Public
awesome.
comment.
Okay.
Yeah, public comment time.
Any other public comment on this public hearing that we're in? If not, I'd entertain a motion to vacate the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, got a motion
I'll second.
and a second to close this public hearing for the application of a rezone to residential flex. Okay, now I will ask for a motion to consider or not consider.
All in favor.
Oh, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. What are we saying? All in favor to? I got lost
To move out of
Closing the
the.
public.
there. To close the public
Yeah,
hearing. Okay.
sorry. I got lost myself.
And now I make a motion to approve the zone change of El Rancho Estate Subdivision Amendment number 4 to residential flex.
And make a recommendation.
I would like to make a recommendation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to make a recommendation to the county commissioners to rezone 2.5 acres of El Rancho subdivision to residential flex. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Did you vote?
I haven't. I guess this is such a hard one. I feel like I'm gonna regret this, but
You can abstain.
I can abstain. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'll abstain.
Don't ever
One
regret.
abstention.
What?
You'll never regret.
Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for a public hearing for 45.5 acres of Valley Estates, 2 residential flex.
I'll make a motion, we go into a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now in a public hearing.
Okay, similar as before, the application to rezone the properties that are listed on these 2 parcels, total of 45.5 acres, plus or minus, so it's pretty close to that, from Spanish Valley Residential District to Spanish Valley Residential Flex. Here is what we're looking at. So this piece, so Balance Rock Resort is just above this piece here. They were rezoned to residential flex. They would be to include this whole area right here. This piece is already underway.
So, do you want the new catch on this one?
Sure.
So you're over the 20 acres as determined by legal. That throws you in the development standards of the planned community,
Okay.
which is open spaces and common areas, fencing, screening, clear vision, architectural standards, water conserving landscaping requirements, lighting, other requirements, and development agreement, as per interpretation by our legal department.
Matt, can I please see a picture of this on the map? I'm not,
Yep.
it's not on the,
No problem.
Was he not
Let me
expecting
get
that?
there real fast. So
Surely he was.
back to the map
weren't?
here.
What's that?
yes.
Sorry.
So you see this?
Was.
You see this
I
piece
see
right
the
here?
residential flex, yeah.
Right underneath it.
See, and I wouldn't have, because I
This
never
is this piece
considered
right
that
here.
part of it.
Okay.
Because I just I
'Cause that-
interpreted that completely different.
So now he has to go through the whole PC approval process. Would be my understanding, just like
No,
Balanced drawing.
just the design standards,
Okay.
Just the design.
And
yeah.
it's,
Just the
it's the
design
square one or the long
which is
thin one?
your development standards.
It is both of those parcels.
Both of those, okay.
But I will also say that this crosses over again the intent of residential as well, and so it's an interesting conflict, right? Because it also talks about like our intention really is to put residential units, but again, kind of giving that option and not stifle that valuation in the future, because we do have 80 acres worth of overlay that's going directly to the north and east of us, and then you have Sitla, their planned zoning that's also contiguous on the entire east and southern side of the property. So again, it's just creating another island, right? And that's what we're trying to stay away from.
so. Look,
Yes, he needs.
on page 15, it says, while flex uses should generally be designed and developed according to the requirements of this chapter for the PC zone, there are separate ordinances for each type of flex development. So to me, that it's saying that the flex development has to go through the requirements of the PC zone.
Or it's underlining usage.
So are you asking for
Yeah.
a
Which
area
page
of
is
land
that?
to be rezoned?
Of
You're not
the
giving a,
planned
you're not
community?
giving a
Yes.
proposed development yet. You're
No,
just
not
saying
yet.
rezone.
Just
comes
the
next.
rezone.
So,
Mhm.
so you can rezone the 45 acres, but then when you submit a plan,
Right.
if that plan is 20 acres or more, then
Right.
you're going this direction.
Right.
If it's less, if it's just small, like the one you just did, then you just do it.
Right.
All you're saying now is the whole area is residential flex, which could mean a lot of different things when he finally comes in with his plan.
Correct.
And that happens on the overlay process or the conditional
Or
use.
site planning, design.
It doesn't mean he has to go through
No,
the PC zone
No,
process?
because he would have to have 200 acres,
Yeah,
a
he's not
minimum
at
of 200
large.
acres for
Right.
a large planned community.
Mhm.
He falls under that,
He's a small plant community.
which is a minimum of 20 acres, so it's a small planned community. And under single ownership, this area will allow up to 4 residential units per acreage and a range of residential units and types. Yeah.
Right. And again, not asking for any density changes. It's
Right.
utilizing the residential component, right, of the land use regulations. But just as you're saying, it's providing that flexibility sometime in the future. Is it tomorrow? Is it down the road? That's really it. Giving the flexibility down the road. So.
When you finally get a plan of what's being
Mhm.
proposed to develop, then you'll decide if that has to follow the PC zone, let's see.
But it's
PC
not over
process
but
or
it's
the
not over
overlay?
200
PC
acres.
zone, or, something similar to what he just approved a few minutes ago.
But this project's already underway.
The first phase.
It has
Very
been-
First 25.
Yeah.
Or first 24
So-
lots.
I mean, how do you go back and require a development agreement on a?
It's how many acres?
It's 45 total.
But
the
what's underway? What's the?
about 8.5 acres
Yeah.
of improvements.
Just that.
He's under 20.
So under
Yeah.
20, right?
Yeah.
And it's designated right now as quarter acre lots as residential. Infrastructure is going in as it's already been approved as a,
So anything that's already underway, already entitled, you're operating under those rules.
under those usages,
The
yes.
fact that you're changing an area to the flex
Mhm.
RF zone, that will mean that any new proposals will follow this zone guideline versus
So-
something already approved.
So for what's just make sure I grasp this, because I probably don't. So for what's underway, you can, I mean, it's already underway, but then you could come and apply if we change the zone,
Mhm.
or we recommend, and then the zone gets changed, you could come and apply for the overlay
Yeah.
at that point.
Yep.
So it's really nothing is granted or vested
Just
just by
Exactly.
recommend or having the zone change.
Residential flex
just
zone.
places them in the zone.
So you would have to come in with that whole 8 acres to do the overlay, and then we could apply conditions if
Correct.
necessary.
So will he have to have a development agreement?
I don't think so. I think he falls
Not-
under that 200 acres.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
it's
it's
over the
minimum.
200 acres.
And
Yeah,
where does
it's
it
under the 200 acres?
The
It's over
the
the
over
20.
200 had a development agreement.
where are you seeing?
But the overlay district, and when any time you do the overlay, which is the
It'll
hard
have
part,
a
requires a
development
development
agreement,
agreement. Part of it, but it also puts you through. Kind of, you mentioned it last time, that planned unit development process where you've got to go through, and
Yeah, it's almost
we're
like
working with you on the roads
Right.
and everything else. And Sheik's already been pretty accommodable to. I mean, obviously, this first phase is already planned out, infrastructure going in, but we did require, Balance Rock to widen the roads, because at some point we can realistically see a public road coming through here, even though we're not accepting it right now as that. Let's go ahead and design it, because
Mhm.
after 10 years it would become a public road. And so
Yeah, and we've incorporated that into our kind of that phase 2 overall master planning on the other outside of the 8.5 acres as well. So
but all of that comes to the next step.
right, exactly.
Yeah, because we had Balanced Rock do a development agreement, right?
For the
Yeah.
overlay.
Yep, they're an overlay.
Mhm.
So all of this is over.
Agreement required and when not.
For the overlay.
The overlay requires a
final
development
step.
agreement. Same with the PC zone, has the same.
So is this one going to be a planned community or not?
I think that's what, as far as a fully designed community, like ideally right now we're looking at residential units versus a mix of multiple commercial, but this is kind of the first step for us to kind of get through this step to figure out, okay, is it truly, right? Are we allowed? Because we're not even looking at right now, is it allowed for us to have commercial there? Does that make sense? Like,
Because if you are going to residential flex, it is called a residential flex planned community.
mhm.
That's the name of the zone.
But it's the requirements of what that planned community within, again, above 20 acres in the development, and above the 200 acres. So yeah, I think there's some. We're gonna have conditioned roads. We'll have landscaping plans, overall lighting, right? As we get into the vertical construction and permitting process, but yeah, as of right now, there isn't anything designed. We're trying to get the zoning done so that we can take that next step.
So if I understand correctly, so it's 45 acres, but 8 are already developed.
Yeah,
So that's
in middle of development.
okay.
or
So that's
build out.
37 acres
Mhm.
left. So you could actually come in with a proposal for 19 acres and a proposal for 18 acres, and
Potentially.
neither of those would fall within the planned community.
And it could be all, and it would conform into the quarter acre single family home residential conformity.
Subdivided.
Don't give him ideas.
Well, I'm just pointing out that planned community, you can do it in bits and
Bits and
pieces, or
pieces,
you could do
absolutely.
two big pieces and
Right,
still not have
right.
to do.
And
follow
like
all
Balanced Rock, right? I mean, they had a lodge and they have a hotel and hospitality component with the separation, kind of what you were talking about, from the buffer from the residential, being able to combine higher dense residential as well. So that could be a possibility on the rest of the 35 acres. But yes, absolutely. Right now, since we're working under SVR zoning language, we've been really concentrating on just strictly no density increases, conforming to all of the requirements as single family homes.
When I went through the uses on just considering the PC process, when you look at the large planned community and those permitted uses in here, it doesn't give you that option for the overnight rentals and overnight condominiums, overnight townhomes. It calls out you can have, your single family homes on the residential uses, single family detached, single family attached, multifamily residential. So to me, I read this as anticipating that these are fixed forever and not an overnight rental type project. In here, it does allow you,
It does say 200 though.
Yeah, what's it say for small?
and then it goes into the conditional uses. You can have conditional uses, and the approved PC zone plan and or community structure plan may include provisions for specific land uses. So they could come under a conditional use
Mhm.
process for the overnight rentals, but you're in another process as a conditional use that
Mhm.
developer has to comply with those conditions forever. Whereas under residential flex allows overnight rentals to come into play in that zone through that overlay district, and there's no conditions with it other than we have to approve that overlay district plan.
But still conforming to the residential, right?
With
Underline.
And the conditions are a part of the development agreement, things like that, but not an additional conditional use process.
While flex uses should generally be designed and developed according to the requirements of this chapter for the PC zone, there are separate ordinance for each type of flex development.
As,
Right.
So
and
it,
that's-
that
As that was-
separates the flexes from this chapter.
I thought it means in addition there are.
Well, flex flex
That's where you get
uses should generally be designed and developed according to the requirements of this chapter for the PC zone. There are separate ordinance for each type of flex.
Right, and that's when you go to page 26, and that's the flex. That's the one pager for the flex. Or if it was business, there's a one pager, a quick.
Yeah, that's
Right.
talking about the
Yeah.
3 different.
So I
Yeah,
think they're
chapter
saying,
three.
then go see this.
See, and I don't read it that way. I read it as
love
I read it
that.
as
Yeah.
in generally you should follow the PC, but there are separate ordinance for each type of flex development. I mean, how do you read that?
That's how I, yeah.
Like it's
how I.
Well, flex uses should generally be designed and developed according to the requirements of this chapter for the PZ zone. There are separate ordinance for each type of flex development.
and this is
Legal?
the ordinance. There are separate, and this is the separate ordinance.
Well, and I understand that, but I mean, yeah, you can generally design it that way, but we did throw in some new ordinance that takes care of it. I mean,
So if you want to apply one of the flex ordinances to an area, then you are going to have, for example, what we've talked about now, the small project you had first. You're going to apply certain requirements to the 2.5 acre development. That would not be the same requirements as would be in the 20 acre PC zone. So if you want a flex type zone change in a different area, and I forget what kind of flex.
residential flex.
Residential,
Mhm.
I mean,
Commercial flex.
commercial. So if you want to put a commercial flex into a certain zone, and it says in there that 20 acre commercial flex development is going to be under PC. I'm just making this up. The PC ordinance, then you go that route if that's the development.
Mhm.
If it's a 20 acre plan, but if it's just a 1 acre plan for commercial, you would go to the separate commercial ordinance and apply it to that development. Just like you would the residential here on the 2.
You're earning your money.
I just have a question. This might have to do with Balanced Rock. When I read this, it said that the flex zones were designed to be around the highway, 191. But this is all generally located along 191. How did this happen that this got so far afield?
But it also
Illegal.
says it needs to be near the gravel pit too.
Right.
I mean, it just,
Was there really a legal opinion? Okay.
So you probably could take a position that we always intended that this flex would not apply any farther than this distance
Right.
from the highway.
Right.
And then you could just make that your pattern throughout, and if the county commission agreed, you'd be okay. I mean, you all have some leeway interpreting your own ordinances. I mean, if it says 50 feet, then you can't interpret that to be 25, but you see what I'm saying?
Well, I see this one is very different from the previous one. The previous one made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This one, just because of where it was located. This one, I mean, I understand it abuts another residential flex, but it doesn't make sense in terms of the distance from the highway.
I just think the
And
way to
other
look at
development.
is to just realize that I think these options are thrown in there to give everyone flexibility and option versus restrictiveness.
Yeah.
So,
I am going to say that there is no way that you cannot approve this when you just approved one that's adjacent to it, similar to.
Yeah. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
To close the public hearing?
Yep.
That's an easy motion to make. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for a recommendation for a rezone to residential flex.
Well, I'll make a motion. We recommend to the county commissioners that we approve the rezone to residential flex. And I'll add the comment just because it's not vesting that overnight accommodations today. Those decisions and that planning can be done. He'll have to come back.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Comment or question. He'll have to come back, and what would his next step be? Is to ask for the overnight accommodations overlay?
If that's what we go for.
Yeah.
If that's what's
If
done.
that's what he wants.
Residential flex is.
But if
So even the part that's why I asked the interpretation question. So what he's already developing, it's
Residential, you
if it gets changed to residential flex, nothing's vested today. He has to come with and apply for the overlay.
All the steps of chapter 10.
That's
That is correct.
And does that chapter 10, everything in chapter 10, address things like making sure the county's getting, I don't know, all of the impacts and whatnot that might,
The development agreement.
yeah, the
Mhm.
development
Mhm.
agreement.
That
So-
is in chapter 10.
Okay, so because even though we're not making them go through the PC zone process, we're still going to get a development agreement.
and we can still put like all of them. They can come. We can put whatever conditions we feel are needed, necessary, or valid that within reason.
Thank you. Within
Within
reason.
reason, yeah.
I mean, we can,
100%.
Okay. I have a
Motion
motion.
still stands. I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to make a recommendation to the county commission to apply the residential flex or rezone to a residential flex 45.5 acres Valley Estates. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Did that other residential flex get an overlay district?
Mhm.
So okay, so this is going to be the kind of thing where then you can come back and you can say, well, it's right next to
Yep.
another. Okay. So I'm gonna vote no. I didn't vote on the balanced rock, and it does seem to me that it's just opening up the whole area to a bunch of development that needs to be considered. Sorry about that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay.
All right.
Another public hearing for
Should I just stand here? Okay. I got some public comments on the zone. No, I already.
for the consideration and approval of the 2023 September 2023 Spanish Valley zoning map. Updating recent approved overlays and zoning. Okay.
You're missing two.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to change the map.
El
already.
Rancho and
So make a motion first on the public hearing.
public hearing. I make a motion to move into a public hearing.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion, a second to move into a public hearing. As stated before, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hoping somebody would say no. All right. So on here, I heard you of kind of your discussion. So I want you to know that I did not disregard the discussion that was had. As a reminder, this is really a change in the map to update the recent approvals. And in the discussion, obviously we left off last time, this PC portion that was already approved. It was titled South Valley Community PC Zone or South Valley Community. And so SITLA did come in for that. They followed the PC process. They were approved for all of their community plans on there. And so we had to highlight what area of this entire PC zone was already approved on our map. And so where that wasn't is there, you now see that change in here. There was a concern about this controlled district highway. Well, where in the world did this come from? In our previous ordinance, well, and it's still there now, on our overarching ordinance, it had this highway district, controlled district, as part of it. And so as a reminder, we had to keep those parcels that were gravel pits. We could not change their zone. So that's why you still see this controlled district highway zone in there. There was also discussion, and that's this brown piece. And down here as well. So those we couldn't change those uses at all. Even though, unfortunately, our ordinance, the Spanish Valley ordinance, doesn't reference those. It still does in our overarching ordinance. And so because of that, that's why there weren't changes to that. In the past, there were also these existing uses that were highlighted on it, but really the kind of how I put this in my mind is you should be able to look at the zoning map and flip right to the zoning ordinance and have those zones listed. So existing uses that were there before all these changes, it didn't make sense to continue to highlight those pieces because there wasn't, I mean, if you were to look at the existing use on Lloyd's properties and I flipped through the ordinances, well, there's nothing titled in anything existing uses. And so his automatically and any other property on here, as you look, there's a lot of overnight rentals that were approved in the past before these ordinance changes took place. There's some that were grandfathered in, and Lloyd's properties are grandfathered in. Even though we changed the zoning on them, they're still grandfathered in because those uses were there. So we had a really good conversation with the Cooks that came in on Miriam Court. They're surrounded by residential. It's like, well, you really cannot do single family home there. It's not, single family homes are not allowed in highway commercial. And so because of that, they had to go through this overlay district to get it. And it's not even single family homes. Single family homes are not permitted, but overnight rentals are. And so they went the overnight rental route, quick and easy. And so I took off those kind of as I spoke with some of our attorneys on it. It was like, you can't really continue to show those existing uses because there's not a zone that matches existing use. And so nor would you want to highlight the old use, the old zone use, other than we cannot touch the gravel pits. And so that's why those were left out and continued to be left out, other than showing and highlighting those properties that have gone through the process to receive that overnight overlay to the zone that those properties exist in. So that's why on Balance Rock, they came in similar to Chic has done. They came in, rezoned to residential flex, and placed the overlay district on it, which was approved by you and the commission. So it represents everything that we have today, but it doesn't highlight prior uses.
I understand why it's not highlighted on the map, but on the same hand, me as a commissioner, I like to know, like be able to see that, what that use is, just so when people come in like you, you can be like, oh, well, you got left out. You know what I mean? Like the people around you.
Right.
And so
this is this is their previous uses. In Spanish Valley, it was in here is like,
Yeah, can't you tell from that site?
Blow up into it.
you need a facilitator.
that map.
Almost 1,000 foot of highway commercial.
So
Oh.
this is Spanish Valley, and you have this highway commercial district that is the 1,000 feet that you hear Lloyd reference all along the highway throughout the county was this 1,000 foot piece. But in there, it was either highway district or A1. Those are the existing uses that were allowed. And in the A1 zone, it allowed and permitted overnight rentals and single family homes and all throughout the whole entire area.
Yeah.
But as you switch to the new, you're applying the new Spanish Valley zoning.
So it took from
Other than those
1978 to 2019 to change the zoning.
Yes. And so, and you had a discussion last time with Lloyd. He's like, well, even if I were to add onto my garage on an existing overnight rental in the properties that he's in, he is now non-conforming, and it's got to go through this
Change of
process
use.
for the
Change
new
of use,
zoning.
yeah.
Well, so does every property
Yep.
on here that is no longer conforming with the new zone. And it happens all over the place. It's not abnormal as zones change in the future, and we're about to do it again to property owners as those new zones come into play on their properties. That's why for you're like, they want to know what the effect is on their individual properties. Absolutely. Because that's how critical it is, and I remember some of the arguments that was made in the past from commercial property owners is like, no, we want to stay within that highway district because it's flexible and I can do what I want to do on there. And then you get approved. Now you're in a highway flex. Well, what does that mean? I was planning on putting a hotel in here. Well, now they can't. It's only allowed in your highway commercial or whatever. And so that's kind of your zoning map should coincide with your zoning.
Well, and your ordinances, right? As
And the
well.
ordinance, correct.
And so I think that's kind of what you guys were talking about. Getting
So we
the-
didn't
the
highlight
newer
those ones
ordinances
that up in
updated.
here. I mean, this whole area is in disarray where you have overnight rentals popping in the SVR zone now, which doesn't allow overnight rentals, but they were there before and were grandfathered in before the zoning change took place.
So I guess with the map that I guess from the 2019 ordinance, there was 3 different versions of the map. So how did that map on Spanish Valley, the very last one, just get adopted? Because I mean, you were I guess on the ordinances you were describing the individual zoning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is this something similar in that aspect of where you can change the zoning on the map, adopt the ordinances, and that would apply to the properties?
Actually, 2021, we came back and amended the map.
Got it.
We changed it because they had a bunch. So the whole end of Sunny Acres was all SVR.
That's
We
right.
had-
That's right.
We had
That's right.
storage units. We
Yep.
had
The RV camps and porta potty guys.
We
Yeah.
had all this stuff on there.
Yeah.
So we came back and amended it in 21 to create what you see now.
Yeah,
more or
because it was again so disjointed,
less.
right?
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, and there was a correction on Sitla land too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I do see one thing. Moa Business Park, just north of it. I think it's the 2 end lots, not divided there.
So this tooth right here.
Yeah, so you've got the one that you're on right now. That's the one that Terrence Thompson's building on right now. The one that's in between the
Correct.
I know I asked what
And then
that
the
was.
end one.
What
it's
is it?
Condos.
Oh.
And then the end one is Steve has the 5 or 6 camp spots there.
Mhm.
So it's the 2 end pieces. Unless there's one I don't know about that was done there.
So you're saying
What is the south
Just the
one?
2, not the 3?
So let me see your cursor for a second.
You have it.
So this piece right here, Steve's got the campground on. This piece would be Terrence doing the condos. This piece would be Don Hamilton's, and I don't think he has ever done an overlay. If I'm looking at the right one, because I know for a fact that one's Don Hamilton's. He's doing he's got RV or UTV rentals out of there and some storage stuff.
So you think it
that's
needs to
part
be
of the
shifted to a
business part.
different parcel?
Well, it's not business. What's that, Matt?
It needs to be that overlay.
Well, I think this one's on the wrong spot. I think it's just the 2 end lots that have the overlay, unless I'm unaware of another one on there.
MOC, the one next to
MOC has never done.
never had an overlay.
No.
Huh.
MOC is illegally running and was.
I didn't say MOC.
Oh.
Never mind.
No, none of the ones were actually there before the 2019 and up and running. They
Got
were
it.
put in afterwards.
Afterwards.
And none of them have came in for
the overlay.
Yes.
So I can look again. I went through all of the approvals of the overlay district,
Do you remember a name on it?
and that's how I got to these.
You remember a name on that overlay? No.
There was no.
I know we had Ballsley come in here. Tom, he came in, and we.
Oh,
did
it's the
step
first.
one of it. We never seen him again.
Okay.
Ever, because I called him out on. He said that he'd already contacted the water and sewer, and they were good with it. I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
I said, as a matter of fact, you're already connected to RVs there, and I called him out on it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we never seen him again after that. We seen
Okay.
step one.
That's true.
These are all of these were the ones that were approved through planning commission and commission.
Yeah, because Dawn.
I'm pretty
Tom.
sure that's right. The one with the overlaid is Don Hamilton.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that one is Don Hamilton's, and I know Don hasn't done one.
Right.
I really think it's the one to the north of it.
This piece right here
Mm-hmm.
that has been approved for overlay.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one that TNT came in.
Terrence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
TNT, what's he called his business? That's how they proposed it as
Oh.
his business. And then
One.
it was him and Steve Howard that proposed it, and they did it as one for their 2 individual parcels.
Do we still not have a way to look at property ownership in our county?
Was that a question for me? Sorry.
Carroll Drilling LLC,
Yep.
every one of them.
That's
So that's what you use.
Well, that's how far
that's
back it
ours
is.
are. This
Okay.
just isn't updated.
No,
So
and it depends on where you are.
But the county should have a property ownership
Yeah,
database.
yeah. You
like
well,
other-
no, mm-mm.
No.
Nope. You can actually,
There's a state one.
we
but
could go in.
yeah, but not
It
San Juan
doesn't-
County. You have
yeah,
to go in and
that's
see
I think
Cindy Holyoke to
requesting,
look
yeah.
up parcels.
Yeah.
There's nothing online for
But other
parcels.
counties have that.
Yes, they do.
Okay,
Mhm.
it's something we can
Yes.
work toward.
Yeah.
Talk to Cindy.
So would it be appropriate in this situation? Because I think you were saying that the 2.5 acres, it makes sense, right, with the surrounding usage. I mean, would this be the appropriate time to look at an overall arching subdivision and say, yeah, this fits more along the lines of residential flex or highway commercial as you guys are amending this map?
I thought about that too. As because you had that discussion.
Right.
You had mentioned it, and the planning commission mentioned it as well. It's something where this is an update on the approvals.
Mm-hmm.
I would think if we're going to change somebody's zone out from underneath them, then
Public hearing.
there's got to be a little bit more of a public process. Yeah.
Right.
And so this literally is just to update what was approved. And so
Gotcha.
if the planning commission wants to recommend changes to it to incorporate
Mhm.
different lands or whatever, then they could do that in their motion, and then I would have to then have that public process before I take it to the commission.
So let's create some more work for Mac.
Specifically for those. Yeah, no, I'll do whatever.
No, I'm
but
messing.
I would want to make sure that those property owners
Yeah,
were all of a sudden
notified.
are
Yeah,
changing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so you would have to contact them as their neighbors as well
Mm-hmm.
around there so that they knew.
But on that same notion,
That's how 2019.
we're getting ready to try to put together a 3-night meeting to
Correct.
create a map to go along with our 99.9% final
Yes,
ordinance.
and all of these zones are changing.
Yes.
And so
So I think at this point, let's run with this for this moment, but let's get on this November kick of getting the community together to get this pinpointed down. And I'm not saying we're going to wipe the slate clean from one end to the other. We are just going to help put in, like in LaSalle, we might hit the main roads, and this is this, and this. As it stands right now in Old LaSalle, one of the biggest fights is the 1,000-foot highway commercial.
absolutely same.
As of right now, we can take it in and say, okay, we leave
Same
everything
problem
A1
in
out
LaSalle.
here. Let's move along the highway here. Yeah, let's keep even a highway flex in there, because they don't want big commercial there. They don't want highway commercial. So, but a highway flex would fit in a LaSalle area like that. That I think that's what we need to address with the community is it's like we don't want to start at square one again. Let's just critique these things, because I think we could spend 30 minutes on the Spanish Valley map and have it critiqued and fixed and done. And then we can move right up the highway. We're hitting these main areas. There's a lot of places that we're not looking at because, there's a lot of unincorporated or privately owned area in San Juan County. So,
Absolutely.
I think we can move right along on it.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun.
I do think it would be helpful to I think this was the point Cody was making, highlight which of the properties have non-conforming uses, because that
Oh
that'll
my.
give us a lot of information.
Yeah, that was an
It's going to look like it's
so
got chicken
it's-
pox.
because
but
Yeah.
would
Make it
aid in
black.
better decision making, because
Yeah.
right now this all looks like it's equal, but it's not equal.
it's not no, and that's the hard part is non-conforming can still continue that use, but then when you look at our overall ordinance, and we had this discussion with another developer, it's like if you change anything, then you're now in this process over
Right.
here. And he's like, well, I'm not going to change that. I'm going to stick with this, because right now it's acceptable for him to be as non-conforming, but then to police that,
Right.
that's huge. It's a big mess because, and normally, like I mentioned, zones change, zoning changes, and that Miriam Court that used to be all residential, but ultimately, for us as a county, we want more commercial. We want more highway commercial. We don't want single-family homes that have this problem coming off of a highway, where all of a sudden you're into kids.
Yeah.
And so you want that future zoning to try to push them into specific areas, but yet the property owner has rights, and they're a single-family home, and they can continue that single-family home as long as they still stay within the new zoning ordinances. But if you add 50
Don't change that
square
footprint.
building on it, then you're now a non-conforming that we can't add that onto it because the zone won't let you.
Yep.
And so to highlight all of the non-conformance, I think that would be super difficult because
Right.
you would have a lot of single properties throughout the county that are non-conforming just by nature. It's just because you've changed the zone.
I do want to bring up one point. The fact I know everybody's against tourism. That's how it's getting to me these days. But without tourism, we don't have anything. We all move. We have no jobs. That's what it comes down to. There's no jobs for 90% of us that work in these areas without tourism.
Right.
Point being, my property taxes on nightly rentals is on a quarter acre is $6,000. The same house next door is $1,600. So the revenue coming into the county just on the property tax alone, not including the TRT tax that comes into the county, the people that come into the community that are spending money on fuel and food and everything that goes along with it. I was born and raised in Moab. My family was original from there, and I am 100% for tourism. I know we need affordable housing. San Juan County's huge. LaSalle's a 15-minute drive for affordable housing. I can get you 1 acre lots right now for $30,000 with, they've got power to them. It's one of those things that's, you do have to have affordable housing in these communities for people that work there, but at the same time, without our tourist-based revenue coming in, we have nothing. I was there during the early 80s when the mines all shut down. There was no jobs. Everybody left. Families, friends moved away. We were left there just because my dad was a poor mechanic. Happened to have a job. He was like Trent.
I'm pro-tourism too, so I don't.
No.
What's your point?
I'm making a point on the fact that we're trying to steer away from your black polka dots, the non-conforming use, and trying to get away from these nightly rentals and what can be proposed here. I understand why there's so much kickback against the nightly rentals. I understand that. I understand that in this area, this established SVR. But Spanish Valley Drive, that's more or less a main street. That's eventually going to be a small commercial area to keep it from, put your hotels out on the commercial highway. You pick areas like these that have become nightly rental areas, or potentially will become, same as Sheik's project going on here. A lot of this area is nightly rentals. I mean, this is the revenue that's created Spanish Valley at this point. It really has.
Well, and I think you guys as a body, right, as commissioners, have more control, and I think it's appropriate with kind of the Sitla development, right? I mean, it's 2,500 acres, could be 5,000 acres, and so being able to put some requirements around that, because it is truly looking at a master plan, but to look at and I'm just using mine because it's been a hot topic tonight of the 2.5 acres, right? I think that's when it becomes a little bit more stifling for the private landowners, right? Because I hear exactly what you're saying, because it could open up the doors for these other things, right? But if you truly want to control that destiny, right, down the road, is that you have an opportunity with the Sitla property, because again, really dive into the master plan.
Yeah, you are not going to see any nightly rentals in any of that yellow.
What? You don't think so?
I almost guarantee you.
In
Yeah,
the
part of
Sitless
it-
PC
you have
zone,
part of it
I don't
already
think they will
approved.
do any nightly rentals. That's. Are we taking bets on this? Well, so, but
I'd probably put money on it.
short-term rentals, they improve property values, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then that raises our property taxes.
Well-
and then eventually you're on a fixed income and you can't afford to live there anymore. That's
Yeah,
like, so to me it's kind of the pace.
Death and
gotta keep
taxes,
working.
it's normal.
But so I guess, at some point, maybe I'll do it, sit down and figure out what number are we at right now of approvals for overnight accommodations.
These on here, those are the ones that
But how many units?
Units
like
within.
potentially,
Oh, and that's-
how many?
I think we do have to take a look at that. And just as a reminder, you are the planning commission, not the done commission or
Yes.
did done long ago commission. And so I think for me in my head, I'm the same with you, Anne, is like, okay, now what did we approve? And what's come to fruition? What does that really look like? What's the detriment of all these approvals? What does it look like? Kind of
We need
going back to
numbers.
Cody as well. I want to see everything on here so that we know in a planning standpoint what to approve and what not. It's like, hey, we are forcing all of these single family homes, low density, into this area, creating a problem because there's no roads. And so we'll get there. It's one of the things that I'd like to take a look at as well, because Balance Rock Resort, high density development, Sheiks, high density development, and some of the other overlay districts, high density development. So overall, on an overall perspective, what does that really look like? What are we approving? And I think you have to have that picture as well with your zoning map so that you can like, okay, we're getting too clustered. When I was working at Salt Lake City, we were concerned with, putting affordable housing in neighborhood pockets. It was like, man, they're going to drive value down, because then you're going to have a slum apartment next to this mansion, with the $1 million property value. And so, well, we don't want to do that, but they're starting to be clustered here. And then you get so much blight, you get everything that comes with the lower income up there in Salt Lake. It was prostitution, drugs, and, shots fired every night. And so let's disperse it out. Well, somebody had to draw that picture of this area being just too much blight in this area. So let's push it back out to the communities. And you don't want to get into a situation as we approve these rezones and that to where, man, I wish we would have thought of that. You've got high density that's next to a single family home. And that's kind of all, it'll come.
But can I bring
we'll get there.
Point to that too?
Yeah.
So the reason you're seeing these clusters of high density as you're speaking is because of these boundaries right here. The percentage of privately owned in Spanish Valley is very minute if you look at the picture. So yeah, you're seeing this cluster in this area. You're seeing this cluster in this area because everything else is land grabbed. So traded. Thank you. That's what I meant to say. But I think that's why we're seeing the clusters that we are seeing, because it's the only privately owned area within Spanish Valley.
Correct. Yeah.
That's the problem. Seeing a picture for me on planning and zoning is the unknown of such a big piece of property, which is Sitla.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Balanced Rock, we talked Elise.
Yeah, yeah.
But she's on,
She's on, yeah.
And she talked about it, and to me, it kind of went with what they planned in that area.
Yeah, through that South Valley community.
Through that, But without that picture being painted fully, it's kind of hard. Because, it's so huge.
Right. Yep.
Sitla would change Spanish Valley way more than we did are ever going to do the whole time I've sat here. And,
that's why I like that South Valley community plan, because she gives you that. She gives you the densities, that are on there. But for them, without a developer coming and saying, okay, yeah, this is for sure, let's enter into a development agreement. It's all just that community plan. And so it's kind of hard to picture that, but it's there. She's described it.
Yeah, but the what do you call that? It's money. It's all about the money. So the developer, that's when the
rubber hits
the road right there. Yep. It's like, all right, this is great, this plan, but we got to make money now, and that's where it happens.
So how does this work with Sitla? They'll sell off parts of this to a developer, right?
Correct.
And then they may come and say, we want to be residential flex. And then we have short-term rentals in this yellow zone, right?
Well, they're all in the PC zone. I wouldn't ever change out of the PC zone. They've always been, for me, they've always been pretty open booked about what they're doing. Could they change? Could a developer come forward and say, hey, this really doesn't work. I need this zone to get my density,
But I thought she said that they had to have a development agreement with Sitla also. They do.
Yes, the developers.
So the developer has to have an agreement with Sitla, and they have to have an agreement with the county. So in my mind,
the planning commission.
In my mind, you're within that development agreement. Their big picture on this was for housing, affordable housing, is what the big picture was. So that's why I was saying.
Uses in planned community are a lot, right? There's a lot of uses that would be compatible with.
Right.
So anyway.
I'm with Ann. There's only so many people working at McDonald's that are affordable housing than 2,500 acres. Somebody's going to make some money, and that's how it happens.
And we have to look at, and you'll hear this year in the state legislature, they'll they're going to be making changes as well to try to incorporate more affordable housing into our zoning. And you take a look at San Juan County, there's nobody here that's looking or interested in developing tax credit housing, which is used to be the model
I
in the
was.
state. She's like, I will.
So, and so I think this has been the challenge, right? Is that we have, like, I have access to housing products that we can put. I mean, we can put 1,000 homes in 6 months here. I think we talk about consistently, like, affordable housing, but what is that? There isn't any real data or metrics for the area. I think there's lots of, I drive through my neighborhood, or I drive through here, and I talk with, the local grocery clerk, and they say, yeah, we can't afford to be here. Get that. But then there is no real data from a county standpoint where I can make a justification and say, yeah, I'm going to go. It was great because I looked at this 20 acres in Monticello City, right down the street, and said, all right, well, we can put some housing here. I can do 80 homes here. But that's, for me to get into that property and get the infrastructure up and going, that's $1 million alone. And the comment was, well, why can't you go slower? And it's like, well, if you just, so then, but I'm still spending a $500,000 to put 2 houses up, potentially selling at $180,000 to $250,000, right? And so the economy of scale isn't there until there's some financial metrics that
the incentives and
things like that that are in place, right? We're still bound to the traditional mortgage and traditional.
So why does it have to be home ownership that is the goal? Why can't it be long-term rentals?
Well, that's a great question, because we're not in a. So do you want to create longevity and upward mobility for your citizens, or do you want to keep them nestled in a Band-Aid situation, right?
You need a little both, though, right?
You do.
You need some.
You do. You need a little bit both, but I can tell you that I believe there's vacancies in that apartment building over there as well. I hear some of the other apartment buildings are pretty run down, right? But the cost of construction associated with that as well.
I thought it was management was the sticking point.
I think
complex.
everything that I think I think you can hire through that process if you have the resources, right? But again, you have to have and put more resources towards that. But it's the cost of construction as well on a multifamily. With the lower rents, then you need the subsidies from someone to subsidize the rent component, right? So then how do you truly impact your community in that way of, okay, upward mobility? And not unfortunately, but that's the economic wheel that we're in, is that if you own land, right, then it can provide you more resources in the long term of your milestones in life.
The reservation's a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So.
I dare not say more.
So.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Let's entertain a motion to come out of public hearing.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second to
Did
come
we
out
see
of
if there was any public comments online? I can't remember. Or if we just went automatically into discussion. Because I know Elise is on here. Do we still have or we used to have a shaven Beck that was on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Elise. I'm here listening to everything. And but the only public comment I would offer on the zoning map is it looks fine. I can't get into all the details of private land ownership, but in general, it looks fine.
Okay.
Alrighty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to consider and make a recommendation. Consider approval and make a recommendation to the San Juan County Commission of the 2023 Spanish Valley zoning map, if you want to make a motion that would include Sheiks if the commission approves it, I would
Makes
maybe
sense.
do that. And
And then Mac's gonna look into this.
Yeah,
This middle.
I was thinking
where
that one.
Lloyd's,
Yeah.
Lloyd's
Yeah.
talking about. I'll make that motion with those, whatever we're gonna call them, amendments if the commissioner approves those.
Second.
So do we have to do two here, two types of motions? Because this is a consideration and approval, not a we're not recommending
Sorry,
this
this is a
map.
recommendation.
yeah,
Oh, it
that's
is?
gotta be.
It is a recommendation.
So not approval.
Shay caught that earlier.
Ah, sorry.
Sylvia will be the only one that knows what she's talking about.
Yeah,
The only educated one.
that's perfect.
The rest of them will just be like,
Whatever Sylvia said.
Whatever,
She was
Sylvia.
there.
It
Okay.
makes her less nervous when it comes before me for the discussion. And then in the end, we have to consider the rights of the landowners too.
Yeah,
That's right.
You
It's not
do.
what I want, it's just what.
very
But
true.
you guys do like the hard work.
We bat things back and forth a lot. Okay. So I got a motion and a second to consider a recommendation to the commission for this Spanish Valley 2023 Spanish Valley zoning map with the changes if approved. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This one doesn't make much sense to me, but.
Well, if it doesn't make sense to you, it's not going to make sense to me either. No. So we're on that next item,
Number 6.
consideration and approval of the Deer Haven Park subdivision amendment number 7.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out which way to go in our subdivision ordinance. It also requests that boundary line changes come to you. And so this is literally all he's wanting to do is move that boundary of his property. So the adjacent property owner and him kind of, they share a well and just the resources there. This is in LaSalle. With that, he's like the adjacent property owner is willing to move the line for that, and it's 36 feet. I know you can't see it. I'm trying to get there. If it's 36 or, yep, 36 feet. So all this is the old property line moving 36 feet over to capture the well. She doesn't want to have anything to do with the well. She's like, but yet it feeds his property. And so it's the well's on her property, feeding his. He's like, she's willing to give me that property. We just have to go through and make it happen.
Does she
to
use the well?
an amendment? Huh?
Does she use the well?
So there's not a shared well agreement.
No,
Blah.
she doesn't want to have anything to do with it. He's the only one that's developed there, and she was like, if in the future we want to develop a well, we'll develop our own. And so
See, and we talked to Scott about this quite a bit, about that being administration on
boundary
lot line adjustments and easements and things like that. Because you're not creating something new. If
We're
it's
not.
just a lot line adjustment
It's
that
a lot
stays
line
within the
adjustment to the
perimeter.
plat, and so
Mhm.
because you're messing with the plat,
Yeah.
plat changes come through the planning commission.
Hmm.
They don't have to go through. Well, I'll talk to see if they have to go through commission. I try to keep my head in one ball game at a time, and so but here because it's a modification to the plat map, then it has to go through signature process as well, and so.
Gotcha.
But and I've seen this in other counties where they actually have a boundary line adjustment process that kicks them out and they don't have to go this other route.
So what about so if you subdivide
The subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, there was. If it was within in an existing subdivision, it had to come before the board, and if it wasn't, it could be administrative.
We were talking about minor, wasn't that?
Yeah.
Last time you had the easements. I mean, those are easements within.
Yeah.
You know, you're not changing anything, but the plat map had this easement here, and so we bring them to you. It's required of the subdivision ordinance, and so. But really, we've got to look at this whole process holistically. And okay, what makes sense to go where,
right?
And what are the approvals? When you had the minor and major, on the minors, it's kind of that same process as, you know, our staff has understood that if you're only making a minor subdivision, that it doesn't go through this process because you're at 100+ acres, and so it doesn't have to go through the subdivision. Well, when you fine tooth it and you do the black and white in that subdivision, well, there's nothing that states that it kicks it out into another process. It's still in that subdivision ordinance, and so we should have been bringing those back through that subdivision ordinance. And so all of these are, we're taking a look at all of these to try to figure out what's the best approach. I mean, this guy's been waiting almost 2 months now, and all he wants to do is make a property line adjustment. I mean, that's easy. Just go out and move your corner hubs. You know, it's like, it shouldn't be this 2-month wait for him just to move his property line. The adjacent owner, she would have to sign it as well. So why do you have to go through all these checks and balances? And I'm sure there's some law that may prevent that. You know, that somebody sued some city and but yet, I mean, both these property owners are in agreement. They're move the property over because I can't move the well.
So we're making a motion to approve.
Correct.
Okay, I'll make that motion. I'm out of donuts.
You should thank Shake for bringing them.
Exactly.
You need protein next time, buddy. No, thank you. Thank you very much.
The patio hamburger.
Yeah. Got a motion and a second to. Now, is this a recommendation? Probably not.
I don't think I had. Let's see. It's just the approval.
No, wait.
Of that boundary change to the plat. So you're just approving
the only
that.
thing we could approve was a conditional use. Everything else was recommendation, correct?
The plats have to have the commissioner's signature on it. So,
Okay. All right.
So it is a recommendation.
So it would be recommendation to the
And a motion to recommend.
commissioner. And I missed the staff report on this, or you would have had a little bit more information. I was hard pressed.
2 months is long enough.
Sorry, yeah, let's give it to you.
I can't sit still.
Okay, make a recommendation for Deer Haven Park Amendment 7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
He probably said 2 hours is long enough. That's why he's not here.
Yeah.
It's like,
2
Any-
hours. We're
any
2 hours and
opposed?
35 minutes. Let's go.
totally down. Yeah.
Okay, preliminary plat review for Vizcaya.
And I think, Lloyd, this is the property that you're referencing from Terrence.
Yeah, I think so.
So this is his development, and that's where.
Yes. Yep.
Now I'm all confused, trying to figure out.
Yeah, because he's
when
the
this
second
was
from the
approved.
end.
Because these are all condominiums. So basically, the developers coming in. This was the original approval of the plat, but now because the condominiums are constructed, we've got to go through that condominium plat. So that's what you're seeing before you today is changing these to condominiums. Now that he has it constructed, he's got the square footage and the areas that are needed on a condominium plat. And so this is kind of that next step, and this is one of those same things is like, man, our ordinance really isn't clear, but it is clear that it states that if there's even a change to units, that it go through
The
the
name of them?
subdivision. And it has names. I mean, and that's in the overarching condominium plat process in state code, that you have to name them all and they have to be separate from one another. You've got to show your easements on there. And so I've gone through in my staff report, kind of highlighted the areas that I could find that needed to be fixed. Downstairs, we took this through the recorder's office. She had some questions. They've since addressed some of the questions that she had on the areas. Hers were kind of, when you look at the dimensions, on these porches, these are kind of more of a common area, not necessarily tied to the condo. And so she went through and just measured everything out to make sure everything closes. Had some comments that she provided him for that. And so I put it for you, just following that subdivision process as well. Now we've got to go through preliminary before we get to final. He's probably 30 days out before selling these units, or
listing them.
Yeah, listing them. It's a, what are the 2.5 story type building. I reached out to Washington County. Obviously, Washington County has a lot of condominium projects. They've kind of given us some advice of what not to do and what to require of the engineers when they create these plat maps. And so we've kind of looked at what they're doing. In here, you can kind of see where he has the building height from floor to floor. That's one of those state code requirements as well, to make sure you highlight. And it's more if you have a second story condominium compared to your first one, that floor difference is really critical on what you calculate for overall square footage in the condominium. So here they're just straight up and down, no units on top of each other than these. They're 2.5 story high. It was kind of similar with him. He's like, well, who needs to sign on here? But in that subdivision ordinance, it's pretty clear who's supposed to be on the signature blocks. Then these ones, last time we made motion, we didn't make a motion on the ones that we did preliminary before. We just kind of, do you have any comments? But in that subdivision ordinance, it does state preliminary approval. So on this one, I would appreciate the approval side of it, just so that if there's changes, we can certainly make those, but I will need an approval just to follow the ordinance.
They're
Number
already
3.
built in place.
Number 3.
They're already built in place. Yeah, so in our subdivision, it requires a letter from the special service district acknowledging that, yeah, they do have water available and that they've applied, paid the impact fees for that. And so it's kind of more of a touch bases.
They
with the
had
special
to for a
service
building
district.
permit.
They what?
We don't sign the building permit until they pay the impacts.
No, correct. But we need a letter. The subdivision ordinance requires them to speak to the water district or sewer district to make sure that there's availability, that they can connect to it.
Oh.
If there's not one within that area, then they don't have to have a letter. But
Gotcha.
here, we
Which
have
should
the
have been
Spanish
done
Valley
before
Special
they were
Service District.
approved.
Yeah. So they've got to come to you.
Yeah.
Say, yeah, we have available water for this many units.
Yep.
And then it puts them on your radar
And they
as
did.
well.
They did bring a will serve letter in when they originally came in with this project for the overlay.
Really?
Mhm.
And see, and I'll have to look because where they're just wanting condominiums here, I don't know if they had to do an overlay.
Yeah.
I'll have to follow it and just
How many
track
ERUs
back.
was that?
I can't remember.
See, that's what I've.
Because they're 1.25 ERUs
Okay.
for a nightly rental. So you're a quarter more than normal residents. So and I want to say there was 9. I'll have to look back on.
Yeah, that
see
was
what they
me. And
paid.
so I'll check these guys just to make sure if they were approved as an overlay or did they come before the planning commission before the zone change.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. I don't think Shay has made a motion.
I know he hasn't.
Is that what we're all waiting on? Is for me to motion?
Yeah.
Well,
No
'cause
pressure.
Because you can't make the last one.
No, I get it.
You get the last
Cody
one.
usually is out the door. by then.
I wish somebody
He's
would.
standing right there when he says
Okay,
it.
so is this, I recommend preliminary approval
Correct.
of the plat, the condominium plat for Vizcaya.
So you're going to pronounce it the same way I did.
Am I saying it wrong?
I have no idea.
This guy, yeah, I would have said the same.
That's how I would. Okay, I got a motion
I'll second. There you go.
and a second to approve the preliminary plat review for Vizcaya condos. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Building permit review. Did this one guy, did he start building without a permit?
16 Tingrid Circle?
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Which one?
Lloyd.
Oh,
100%.
Lloyd.
Mac, on the building permit table, I was wondering before. I think it had.
It did.
Oh, you already know what I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, so it had other columns on here.
Okay.
I think Scott's done these in the past and was able to get them all on one page. So when I had Ben produce these, he's like, I can't get them all on one page. It's like, I don't know why, but he's like, I can get them all on one page if I cut out some of the columns. And so he cut out those columns. We'll work on that to see what's going on with the system, why Scott could do it, but
I was gonna say that before it showed where they were.
The location.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's kind of.
Yep.
I
we'll
always-
get those back
I
on
always
there.
look for blending at least. I make a motion we adjourn.
Hey, 2 things before we adjourn.
Oh.
One, we still need to go do our
I thought about that the other
tour,
day.
and then
Yes.
Is that still on?
I
let's
talked
put
to
it
Brian.
together.
I'm like, just set the date and we'll
Okay.
just put it out there.
This is for a
The
under canvas out by.
Oh, how
Looking
fun.
Glass.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it
Looking
as a group?
Glass.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So,
So
I reached
they'll
out to
feed us
Brian
up
and I'm like,
there.
Brian, just give me a date and we'll put it out to everybody
Okay.
because the commissioners wanted to go out there as well and see
Okay.
it. And so I'm like, give me a date. I'll tee it up as
Well, if
public
there's
notice.
food, they'll be there for sure.
Yes. Well, they have a restaurant, and so
Why just make commissioners like?
yeah,
You know, like,
yeah.
Okay.
What was your other
they
thing?
never go anywhere without getting fed.
Yeah. The other thing, I'm getting knee surgery on November the 7th. So
Okay.
November meeting, I'm out.
So you think this meeting was long?
Lloyd, he can handle it.
Oh yeah.
I
I
gotta-
set records on length.
Now, then I could probably just sit at my house and maybe call it.
Oh, you could Zoom and still
Yeah.
chair it, I think.
No.
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 He'll be under opioids. So,
Yeah. No telling. Got a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor to adjourn?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
When is our next meeting?
Is it the 7th or the 12th? I was in my head the 12th.
9th.
Is it the
See you
9th?
I think it's the 9th.
or whenever.
The 7th is a Tuesday.
Yeah, so it's the
The
9th.
9th. for
See ya,
sure.
Cody.
The 9th.
Yeah.
So when would you like to try to do our 3-night session, Mac?
I'll go through and look at my bigger calendar, and part of it's going to be the facilitator part of it. and
Oh, gotcha.
see when they can do it. And so I'll
I've
push
got-
that out pretty quick. And
I've got
November 9th.
water sewer the second Wednesday. I've got fire the 1st,
So are you picking
3rd,
the
and
dates
5th
for the glamping?
I'll get a hold
Wednesday.
of Brian.
I know Shay's
I'll just
got
send
the
it.
same on fire too.
The week of the 20th is
2 or 3
Thanksgiving,
days.
23rd is Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I have
I'd
a,
like to get that done.
a special service district mandatory training on the 20th
Is it not cold?
that I've got to send out to you, just so you're aware. All you have to do is send one member
Oh, okay.
if everybody
Yeah.
can't make it.
Yeah.
Do you think we
and
can
like I
do
said,
it
I
early
do-
December?
And
Early December?
Good to see you.
Instead of November? I think November's crowded. And I don't think it'll happen.
to meet
Nice to meet you.
to beat our
Appreciate you.
meeting.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
the
our
meeting is
meeting's
no
not till the
facilitator.
Oh,
14th of
And what do
December.
you do?
The 19th?
Okay.
14th.
Okay.
So the second Thursday is the 14th of December. So
Okay, I can look at it and see if. Let me work with the facilitator. They're
Yeah.
gonna be able to
Another
dictate a little bit on how quick they can respond because
I mean, if you
they're gonna have to take and go through the zone,
zone,
vet it, figure out what storyboards to produce, and then go from there.
Okay.
But I'd love to have it.
yeah,
I mean,
it'd be
we're
neat to get it done.
we're kind of getting in trouble trying to figure out these things, and so
Good to see you. Good luck.
our new zoning ordinance.
Bye-bye.
Stop that.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye. So nice to see you.
You too.
It's so nice to meet you. Okay, I'll see you all. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Soon. Soon.
On the which one?
I'm gonna call him and let them
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
And all this stuff.
Here, let me end
County
this one.
commissioners say he's got his interpretation wrong.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you
It's
too.
been a
Been a
couple
while.
of decades, hasn't it?
They can
Yes.
say that I've got it wrong, but I doesn't make